They both went a long way.
Follow us today at 97.3 The Fan SD. KWFN and KWFN HD1 San Diego.
Annie Heilbrunn here. Catch up on Padres news and all sports throughout San Diego on the Annie and Elsten Show, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. daily on 97.3 The Fan.
And Odyssey Sports Station. San Diego.
I just like this chair better. I don't like it.
There's a tall one. Oh, you have a tall one too. Yeah.
Got used to squirming around in this one. Cold showers. Normal height says sound check.
What's happening in San Diego? Great Tuesday morning to you. Hope you had a wonderful long weekend. We're back. Your midday hang, Annie and Elsten, here with you for the next 4 hours on San Diego's #1 sports talk station, 97.3 The Fan. Annie Heilbrunn's here. I'm Craig Elsten, joined by Braden Soprenet, all together in our Odyssey studios overlooking sunny, chilly Murphy Canyon. We're ready to roll till 2 o'clock. Gwen and Chris will check in from 2 to 6. The Scraby Show from 6 to 7. We are locked and loaded for you today on 97.3 The Fan. What's going on, Annie?
Good morning. Good morning, Craig, Braden, everybody listening. Happy Tuesday. Hope everyone had a great weekend. It's beautiful outside. Well, I had a lot of timeline dread. I had a lot of sadness, which I understand, or kind of dooming, glooming.
Glooming.
Which we'll get into, about the Dodgers and everything, but then also about TikTok. Like, man, I had to step away from X for a while and just let the TikTokers have their moment.
Yeah.
That was
Because
we all knew it was going to come back on, right? I mean, it was like, it was really going to go away, and who knows if it really will? But there was a lot of sadness, and then I guess happiness. I don't know. Like, now it's back. Is it back? I think it's back.
It is back for like 90 days or something like that.
I think stepping away from your timeline could just be a generally good idea. Like, just in general, good idea. Stay away from that thing. You'll be a lot better off.
You know what I was thinking about the Padres, which, let me just jump in the deep end here.
Sure. Let's jump in.
Okay. I think that there's some growing pains happening, which is like so understandable at this point, because you have these section of fans who are like, wait a second, this was so much better than what the payroll used to be when Jake Peavy was playing or Adrian Gonzalez was playing, or there was 13,000 people in the ballpark on a Tuesday. And the payroll, as we talked to them a few weeks ago, was only $40 million for the entire roster, or $60 million, or $80 million. I think that it's like you have that section of fans, which is completely understandable. Hey, we remember the bad days, and these days are so much better. But then you have another section of fans, which is also completely understandable, that are like, wait, we're not comparing to the bad days anymore. We're trying to get better as a franchise going forward. Mm-hmm. So it's not so much like that we want to just say, hey, we should all be happy because this is so much better than the olden days. And I can understand how these two kind of sentiments are conflicting a little bit. Like, they're kind of butting heads for fans, which makes sense. They're both very true. And so I think, like, for the Padres, it's getting over that hump now of like, you're in a much better place than you were before. That doesn't mean, and I don't think that they're not trying to get better. I believe that they are trying to get better and improve. We just haven't seen it in signings this year, but they've done it in signings in the past few years and everything like that. And that's carrying over into this year. But I think that there is like both sentiments floating around, and they are hard to reconcile.
I get that, and here's how I'll come at the same problem and see if you agree with me, because this is what I was thinking about. Padres fans had in 2024 this incredible season with a second half that included a 19-3, an 8-game winning streak, all these walk-offs, just dynamic play, and then they traded for a team that was as good as any in baseball. And there's no doubt in my mind, there's no doubt in the Dodgers' mind. The Padres had as good a team as anyone in baseball, including L.A. Mm-hmm. Through 3 games of the National League Division Series, San Diego had a 2-1 lead over L.A. It was all in front of us. the Padres' first World Series victory potentially was sitting out there. And you knew there were 2 more rounds, but as it turned out, the Dodgers were the team in front of you. Mm-hmm. San Diego got shut out 24 straight innings. That's how our season ended. It didn't end with a dramatic walk-off like when Bryce Harper beat us in Philadelphia. It didn't end with a blown lead, or it didn't end with, the pitching staff fell apart. There was nothing you could do. Injuries piled up, whatever. Any one of those classic, we just ran out of gas. No, it was 24 shutout innings. And
it was rough.
Since that day, it has felt like the Padres have continued to be shut out. Day by day, inning by inning. It feels like we're on 300 shutout innings now because they have been shut out of the free agent market. They were shut out of Sasaki. All the players that they wanted to keep are going to other teams. Well, going to L.A. Everyone's going to L.A. And it just feels like you are continuing to be shut out by the Dodgers day in and day out. And whether or not that's fair or not, it's emotionally how I think you can explain that feeling and that dichotomy between folks who are like, no, look, this, seeing the map for what it is, and folks going, no, I feel like I've been shut out since the middle of October, nonstop. Like, can we just put a run on the board? Can we sign somebody, do something, put a point on the board?
Yeah, I definitely understand that. I can understand that from Padres fans, where you're just wanting to have some positive news, you're wanting to have some positive feelings, you're wanting to look around to your fellow employees at the water cooler and high five and say, hey, look at what they just did. Aren't you excited about so-and-so coming? Which is what has happened so many times in the past off seasons. And again, I don't think AJ Preller's done. I mean, he doesn't have a complete team yet. I think it's frustrating. I can understand that it's frustrating to wait, but he might be waiting for good reason. He might be waiting because there's a better deal for him if he waits. There's something more that he thinks he can get. So I can't, until it's wrapped up and he's got his roster on the field, it's hard for me to judge his roster, and of course he's working within a payroll that's been given to him. He's working within a budget that's been given to him that he's got to adhere to. So on that end, I'm more like, okay, AJ, let's see what it is when push comes to shove and this team is running out and taking the field in the first game of the season. And even then he can probably still make some moves like we saw last year. But no doubt about it, when the rest of the National League West is improving and getting better, I think some of them are getting into a more of a level playing field with the Padres and the Dodgers, not so much surpassing the Padres, but they are definitely getting to a position where they are going to be competitive. And in this National League West is going to be very competitive. And that's not just the Dodgers. That's the Diamondbacks. That's maybe the Giants. And it's not the Rockies. Let's just be real.
It's not the Rockies. But, there are a lot of things going on right now. But to say that, and I just saw the chat roll this one by, but all this money and all these tickets, and you're not spending, all in caps. Padres have a payroll over $200 million. Over $200 million. They're one of the top spending teams in all of Major League Baseball. Today and right now,
they're in the top 5 in the National League West.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the National League.
They better be top 5 in the National League
they
West.
are definitely also top 5 in the National League West. That's true.
But as we've talked about, I can understand for fans, it is difficult because a lot of that is the raising of the salaries for players who are, I think Ben uses a good analogy here. When your rent increases, you're paying more for the same place that you live in. And I think that's an analogy a lot of people can understand. It doesn't necessarily, you don't look around and you say, wow, this place is worth so much more. However, in the case of the Padres, you still have the value with these players. These players still inherently have value and a lot of value, and they should be the ones that if this team gets into the playoffs and wins a championship, these are a lot likely going to be the players that are going to get you there. So their value is just basically their contract, but it's been we talked about it last week. It's been backloaded for some of these players, so their rent is going up. They're getting paid now. If you would have just divided their contracts by 10, they would have been getting paid this same number the whole time, but they agreed to take less earlier on to allow the Padres to make some other moves. So, I definitely get the frustration. I think the lawsuit also adds to the frustration, but I do think that, and I know it sounds so cheesy, but we saw it with the Padres in 2023. I mean, you can go buy the best team available. The Dodgers have a target on their back now. I mean, if they don't win it all or they don't get close or they're not dominant, they're going to look silly. And I think the Padres like that position of being the underdog where they show up and they're like, well, everyone's counting us out. Everyone's saying the Dodgers are going to win it all. So let us go out and prove something. I think that they thrive in that position. And so at the end of the day, right, you still got to go play the games, just like we saw with Washington in the NFL. You still got to go play the games. You
do. And we will be, because we're forced to be, we will be hanging on the crutch of, what I playfully say on my podcast, and I've brought over here a couple times, baseball is stupid. The stupidity of baseball is what you get to rest your hopes on, because all the time the top seed loses in a 5-game series or a 3 or a 7-game series. All the time that happens. Now, you can write the NL West off for the rest of the 2020s.
I mean, on paper, it's a safe bet to say the Dodgers have a very dominant team, at least on paper.
They've got the best team ever assembled in the history of baseball. I'm willing to say that.
$375 million team
and,
or whatever,
it's
right?
going up now because they're going to sign Kirby Yates, too.
Oh, old friend Kirby Yates.
Yeah, this is a number I'll get back to later. But the Dodgers payroll, I don't know the new figure when you add Yates because I don't know what number his is. Mm-hmm. But the Dodgers payroll, once you put in Yates, will approximately equal 70% of what the entire AL Central makes. Every team in the AL Central pool their payrolls, all 5 teams, put them together, and the Dodgers payroll is 70% of that. So where are we as a sport? Where are we? We are in a unique and new position of competitive imbalance. We're in a position of competitive imbalance that we haven't seen, in my personal opinion, since the reserve clause. Now, that doesn't mean that the playoff field won't be different next year. LA will be in it, but there'll be other teams in. And so the national writers will say, no, look, parity. It doesn't mean that LA couldn't lose in the playoffs. Great teams lose in the playoffs all the time. Playoffs are so short. But a 162-game season, you can't hide. And they will win over 100 games or 110 or 120 for a while. They have built it this way.
Yeah, and I think that's where you get to that sense of, okay, just get in the playoffs. Anything can happen in the playoffs. Brandon said this when the season ended and there was so much parity in the TV contracts. So this was months ago, but that it does make it harder for fans, especially after the regular season that the Padres had. I can understand, for all of the playoffs, it's hard. The regular season is so long that when you have this kind of parity and you have the Dodgers being able to spend this much money, which they're not doing anything illegal, they are just able to find the loopholes in all of this. And MLB has kind of created this ground where they can spend this kind of money, and they were bought by an insane ownership group that also has crazy amounts of money. But it does make it hard, I think, for the average fan sometimes, I think, to be like, well, why am I going to watch the whole season then? You know what I mean? And Brandon, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but in the sense of what does it matter? Let's just get to the playoffs, right? Who's in the playoffs? Because the difference now between, like you said, the regular season and who can win 110 games and who can dominate the regular season, I don't think that. I will watch every game like I normally do, but I can understand how some fans feel like, well, what do we do now? This is going to make it, hard to watch. Am I putting words in your mouth, Brandon?
Not really. I mean, there's a lot of friends that I have that are not really interested in watching baseball at all.
But do you think when the games start, the Padres get some wins, they come back?
They do, but the thing with baseball is it's a casual sport. So, the majority of people I know that are sports fans that watch baseball are not like the people in this chat in YouTube.
Right.
And not like the diehard fans that call into our show. It's a casual sport. They go to the game for beer fest or cocktail fest. They watch the game a little bit. They have a good time with their friends. And if the Padres win, great. If the Padres lose, they're not losing sleep over it. We want to know why? Because they play the same team the next day. And they do that for 162 games. And then around the end of September, if they're trying to get into a playoff spot, you start to pay attention a little bit more, and then you pay attention in the playoffs where you're like living and dying on every pitch. But as we like to say on this show, and I know it's not just myself saying this, you can't go through a season watching baseball like it's the NFL or even the NBA or the NHL where you have to live and die on every play because you are going to go insane.
Yeah.
You can't do that for a full 162. So just with baseball in
say that,
general, there's a lot of people who are like, look, man, don't talk to me about the Padres. I get this all the time. Don't talk to me about the Padres until opening day happens or until at least spring training starts because I got other things that I'm paying attention to. But that being said, I mean, I just think for a lot of Major League Baseball fans, this definitely takes the wind out of a lot of people's sails going into the season.
And MLB kind of fertilized that ground, right? I mean, in terms of
they did. Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah,
the national
but it's-
pundits are saying the same thing as Craig has a segment on that later in the show.
Yeah, okay.
And it's totally true.
Yeah.
Well, and we will get to that as I figured things are going to accordion outward. So in our next segment, we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about Roki Sasaki. We got dealt. We got dealt the two of clubs on Friday in terms
Right
of
after we left.
Yeah, low card in the deck because we got to spend. I mean, I think it was a very apt analogy. We were in the emergency room, waiting room, like. But wait, is there a hope? Wait, is there a chance? But wait, the doctor hasn't come out yet. Until the doctor comes out, we're not going to say it's official. It was official. It was official. They were waiting for that. We literally predicted it about halfway through the show. That sweet spot of morning in Japan and evening on the East Coast of the U.S. And that's exactly when they announced it was 3 o'clock here, it was 6 o'clock on the East Coast, and it was 9 a.m. in Japan.
Yeah, I thought about this a lot on Friday. I mean, I still think, again, where we were coming from was without official word, it was hard to close the door entirely, and that's I think the right way to go about it now, even in hindsight. However, the fact that they did make some. Francis Romero, as we found out, very credible reporter, has his sources dialed in, especially to the international signings. Once they were making that move to have international signings, it was probably the writing on the wall that they were going to go in a different direction. Although you look at what Roki Sasaki signed for, $6.5 million, the Dodgers still were able to sign quite a few other prospects with that number. So it wasn't like the Padres were completely out of it with what they did. I just think, look, that it could have been shut down early on but there was no one within the organization, and that's their right, confirming to local or national reporters that they had moved on. And they decided to do that. That's their right.
And so that's why I said we got dealt the two of clubs. Mm-hmm. We just got stuck in a spot where what were we supposed to do? Just sit there and wait, essentially. Yeah. And we did and sat through it. So here's the thing. We're done with the waiting. We get the last bite of the apple now instead of the first. But when we come back, the plan of the offseason for the Padres was that. Mm-hmm. And now it's gone. Failed. Popped balloon. Done. Now what? Now where? There's a lot to be answered, and there's a lot of questions to be asked for the San Diego Padres. We're going to get to all of that and plenty more. A lot of baseball in the first half of today's show. We will eventually round out to discussion of the NFL weekend that was in Braden's football segment. As we do so many times, we have to pour one out for our beloved Lions. Dag nabbit!
I mean, that's one, too, where you look at it and you're like, on paper, they should have won.
I mean, what an absolute rotten Schottenheimer-esque letdown, except instead of a low-scoring slug game, it was 45-31 or whatever the heck it was. We'll get to that. We've got all the weekend news in the 12 o'clock sports fix still to come. We'll play Mind the Gap at 12:40, try to get you to Scorpions out in Vegas in March. Lots to come between here and 2 o'clock. Back to Roki next on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Great to be back with you on 97.3 The Fan. It's the Annie and Elsten Show. 4 shows this week. We all had yesterday off. Hope you had a great MLK Day. Got a chance to be away from work. For those of you who had to work, hey, thank you for working. Thank you for doing it. That you had to do it that the rest of us didn't. Appreciate you. Either way, we are rolling today. And now we got to, kind of rip the Band-Aid a little bit and talk more about Roki Sasaki. Because we talked about him a heck of a lot as a theoretical Padre, a maybe Padre. Are we in the driver's seat? Is it gonna happen? Oh, here's the video from somebody's hotel room of him in a Padres uniform pitching at Petco Park, and so on and so forth. In the end, Roki Sasaki chose to go to the LA Dodgers, and I tried to compare this on the podcast last night. I'll use the same comparison. If the United States of America had birthed and groomed the greatest new soccer player in the world, right? Christian Pulisic's good. Imagine if he was Messi good, or that we have another kid that just shows up, Joe Superstar, and he is the best young soccer player in the world. And he signs with Manchester City for the biggest, transfer deal ever. The biggest soccer club in the world. He signs for the biggest soccer club in the world. Yeah, there's going to be some Everton fans that are going to be really pissed. There's going to be some Arsenal fans that are going to be pissed. There's going to be some fans of other clubs that are going to be pissed. But in the end, you go, well, the kid wanted to sign with the biggest club, the number one club in the world. That club wanted him. It's not really a surprise that he would make that decision. And that is what has happened in this case. Roki Sasaki went to Japan's team, the Los Angeles Dodgers, to be part of Japan's team, right alongside Yamamoto and Ohtani. And so shall he be for the next 6 years. In the end, he made a decision that, from his perspective, in my opinion, Annie, makes a ton of sense.
It does. And there was talk about, is MLB going to investigate this? Was there a deal beforehand? MLB already investigated this. Could they do it again? I guess. I don't know what their rules are on this, but they investigated it when there was the first rumors about there already being a deal in place. I think it's more likely that Roki just always wanted to go to the Dodgers. The Dodgers were probably his first choice, and he did his due diligence. He looked around. My understanding is that no one was really all that surprised when he did sign with the Dodgers, at least inside of the other organizations, because at that point the signs were pointing toward him going to the Dodgers. I think that other executives of other teams had kind of figured it out by the time that it finally got done, even if they thought they were still in the running. I think he probably had his sights set on the Dodgers, and every other team kind of had to compare against that, and then he ended up signing with the team that I think had been his number one the whole time. There were a lot of good arguments for why Roki should come to the Padres, but there were a lot of good arguments of why he would go to LA as well, and I think we saw that play out. And remember, he doesn't have, I saw some people say, well, he would have been the Padres needed him more. Well, if you're Roki Sasaki, you're not really thinking about what do the Padres need. You're thinking about what do I want?
Right.
You know what I mean? So I get why he did what he did. I thought it was kind of fascinating to take a peek behind the curtain. The Athletic had a story that was done by several different writers about different executives speaking off the record about the process. And his homework assignment was to look at why his velocity had dropped last year and what they could do to fix it. And some executives thought that was a very thoughtful and introspective thing to do. And other executives thought that it was asking them for proprietary information. Some executives thought he talked a lot and asked good questions, and others thought that he was way too quiet and didn't ask pertinent questions about how the two sides would work together. So you got a lot of varying opinions about this whole process and how he went about it. But ultimately, look, I wasn't surprised, and I don't think that many people were surprised that he went to the Dodgers.
The Athletic put together this gigantic multi-reporter after-the-fact piece about the recruitment of Sasaki, and I thought there were two pieces of it that were really relevant to Padres fans to share. The first is this, and I'm now quoting directly from this piece that has Dennis Lin in it, Fabian Ardaya, Ken Rosenthal, everybody. Quote, with Sasaki, the Dodgers submitted their pitch shortly after the picture was officially posted. Their presentation centered around the city of Los Angeles, which boasts a strong Japanese-American population. It spoke to the organizational continuity that has led to postseason runs every season since 2013. Stability became a topic they'd continued to hammer in their recruiting efforts, particularly as a contrast to the ongoing legal battle surrounding the rival Padres ownership group. More than anything, the Dodgers laid out their development plan.
You're going to use that tool. If you're the
Right.
Dodgers, you're absolutely going to use that tool. You're going to say, look at the consistency we have over here. Look at our ownership group. Look at what we're willing to spend. And look at elsewhere. Can they give you that? So I understand why the Dodgers did that.
Here's the other part. When they had their second meeting with Sasaki, right? Padres brought him into Petco Park, and Jackson Merrill's there, and Manny's there, and Salas is there, and Yu's there, right? And we're throwing, and we're cool. Back to quoting. The meeting with Sasaki did not take place at Dodger Stadium, which is in the midst of renovations. Instead, the Dodgers invited Sasaki and his camp to part owner Peter Guber's home in Bel Air. Aiming for a more relaxed atmosphere, a sushi chef was hired to come to Guber's home and prepare dinner. The chef worked as Sasaki sat on the couch and chatted with his future teammates, who each vouched for what life was like with the reigning World Series champions.
Well, remember, they're doing, I guess, major redevelopments to the clubhouses at Dodger Stadium, which I'm surprised to hear, but they're going to do that again. I think they did it again recently.
Because that takes down the number
Absolutely.
of dollars they have to contribute to revenue sharing.
Absolutely. So, that was a little kind of probably a hint. Also, that he closed with the Dodgers. I think that was also kind of a hint. Like he did his due diligence. He went to the other teams, which I heard those meetings went really well. With the Padres. But at the end of the day, he's sitting on a couch with his future teammates that he has been wanting to go to. They brought in Magic Johnson because he's a big basketball fan.
Right.
So the first meeting, they bring in Magic Johnson to give him a jersey and talk to him about basketball. And they pulled out all the stops, and they did their due diligence as well, just like AJ Preller and his group did. I think it's also, look, it's hard. I remember when the Padres were spending a lot of money and they were winning. So that was after 2022, right? Mm-hmm. There was a lot of players who, because other players told me this, that were excited to come to the Padres because they knew they could get a big contract, a very favorable player contract, and it was a competitive team, and you get to live in San Diego. You can take that same mentality and put it over there with the Dodgers. You know you're going to a team where you're going to be paid a lot of money as a player. Most likely, you're going to live in LA, Southern California. It's not San Diego. It sounds beautiful, San Diego, of course, but it's still Southern California. The weather's good. And, you're going to be on a competitive team. Like, what players a lot of times, like, that's ticking all your boxes, and that's not to say that they can't get that with the Padres or the Braves or the Diamondbacks. But when you have a choice and it's your choice, you're probably like, well, let me go play with the world championship team.
100%.
And with Magic Johnson.
And this is going to build into the next segment, and it'll wind up being a Roki hour, as it turns out. But as a result, we now know what many people thought from the beginning. We were close to it, too close to it, myopically close to it. So we only saw the San Diego side of it. We saw all the advantages. We saw, as you said so well, how important he was to us. But we weren't as important to him as he was to us. We needed Roki more than Roki needed us. That's just a fact of the matter. We allowed ourselves to believe, to go back to AJ at Peter Seidler's memorial, to go back to Mike Schilt a few weeks ago saying, hey, I think we got a really good chance.
No, Mike Schilt said, I fully expect him to be a Padre.
Expect him to be a Padre.
When it's done, which I'm sure Mike Schilt meant like that's the tenacity that we're going after him. But national media got a hold of that and ran with that a little bit. I'm thinking it was, he was saying it was in the bag.
Yes. So we allowed ourselves to believe that. And so did the Padres. They built the entire offseason on what we now know, in hindsight, was a lottery chance that he wasn't going to go to L.A., that he would somehow see through the billions of dollars of payroll and Bel Air mansions with private sushi chefs and Magic Johnson giving him a jersey and Shohei and Yamamoto on his team, for God's sakes. And all of that, and he was going to take the Padres instead. That brought an end officially to the Camelot dreams that we had for a few years. Our place is special. Our place is different. Our place brings in all. No, that's done. What's the new plan for the San Diego Padres? Because that plan's over with now.
And the Toronto Blue Jays are going through the same thing. I mean, well, now they got Anthony Santander.
They had a new plan. They spent
really
money.
wanted their money to be given to someone. But yeah, I mean, they went all in. That same article that you referenced mentioned how a lot of executives were like, what the heck are the Blue Jays doing? Because they are going all in on money, and that by that point, the teams were pretty much well aware that he was going to the Dodgers, but they were trying to make a last-ditch effort to go ahead and up the money that they were going to be able to give him. So the Blue Jays are out on it too, and I think that the Padres did try to wine him and dine him as well. Like, there's no saying they didn't go to Manny Machado's house and for dinner, and he's got a chef and do the whole 9 yards and everything like that. But what they probably couldn't give him is a World Championship team that just won, last year. Maybe Magic Johnson, I don't know. And C, is his countrymen. Like you said, look, he seems to be close with Ohtani, but also with Yoshinobu Yamamoto. They seem to be very close as well. So you probably had some favored outlook before this process even began.
You did, which meant our offseason was, as it turned out, built on hope. It was a hope strategy. We're hoping that with all the hard work being done, with all the recruitment and due diligence, they haven't signed anyone. They've signed Tyler Wade. That's it. Yeah. They haven't signed anybody. So now, where do you turn when the hope strategy is gone and it doesn't come back? That's what we got to get to as we continue forward here on Annie and Elsten. We got to take a quick time out first, though. It's Annie Halpin, Craig Elsten, Braden Suprenant, all together with you till 2 o'clock on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Baseball coverage on 97.3 The Fans, presented by T-Mobile. Head to T-Mobile.com, get a great deal on an iPhone 16 Pro. Welcome back, everybody. Annie and Elsten program here with you. It winds up becoming a Roki-filled first hour, but that's understandable. You got to put this behind you and put it to bed.
There was so much talk leading up to Friday.
Yeah.
Months and months and months of Roki talk.
Months.
This is closing the chapter.
It truly is.
until the Padres face him next year, I guess.
There was a period of time.
Or this season.
And Annie referenced it earlier. There was a period of time this decade, beginning of this decade, where it felt like the Padres had broken free of the constraints of Major League Baseball. That all of the small market can't spend, stay in your corner, stay in your place. And instead, Peter Seidler said, I'm going to spend money. I'm going to spend big money on big players. I'm going to lock those players in. And instead of perpetually shrinking a team, raising prices, and squeezing the fans for the most you can each year, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to create, instead of a vicious cycle, I'm going to create a virtuous cycle. I'm going to invest in the team. Then fans are going to invest in the club. And then I'm going to continue to invest in the team. And then you're going to continue to invest in the club. And that virtuous cycle spun forward for a period of about 4 years, right? For a period of about 4 years. It really felt like Camelot in Major League Baseball had come to San Diego. Peter Seidler passed away. Prior to that, baseball had already started tightening the thumbscrews on the organization and saying, hang on, spending too much, got to get your debt ratio in line, got to give us a plan on how you're going to reduce, got to give us a plan on how you're going to get in line financially. Once you go over that threshold in the CBT, you stop getting revenue. You have to pay in revenue. You stop getting the revenue. So all of these things working against the Padres. After the death of Peter Seidler and the ownership change, there was that feeling, is Camelot gone? But after a magical season, a trip to the NLDS, really looking like one of the two best teams in Major League Baseball.
And that was a series they could have won.
Sure.
It wasn't like they were so outperformed by an amazing Dodgers roster that they couldn't get it done. They, I'm sure, look back on those 24 straight innings of no offense or not scoring a run and wish that they would have been able to pull one across the board and get those wins. They had a chance, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, we've felt shut out ever since, as I said to start the show. But Roki remained the last piece that was out there that said, no, the magic continues. The Camelot's still here. We can get a kid like Sasaki, and it's exactly what the team needs at exactly the right time. And that means that we don't have to show our cards financially. We don't have to either commit to spending more or commit to trading players and moving payroll. We can keep everything the same, just add Roki, this lottery ticket, win the lotto, and we are in great shape. Winning the lotto was never a super sound strategy financially, and it didn't work out for the Padres this year. And now we get to the cold winter sun moment of like, now you can see it stark and clear. Roki's up there. Tanner Scott's up there. We'll get to that more in the next hour. Soon Kirby Yates will be up there. Maybe they'll sign Pete Alonso. Maybe they'll sign every single player in Major League Baseball to their team and just create a second team. I don't know. But what I do know is that the Padres now have to turn their cards over. They have to show us what direction they're going because they can't just put this team out there to start the season.
Yeah, and I mean, just to touch on a few of those things, we learned throughout this process that the marketing, the Dodgers signing Ohtani has paid them dividends. The marketing deals that they've been able to get, the sponsorship deals that they've been able to get, their road attendance is now, I think, the highest or among the highest. The Ohtani factor is there. And so, that could have been also kind of a lucrative draw for anybody looking to sign with them from Japan. But I do think, you look at the Dodgers and there's been so few, they haven't had back-to-back winning championships in MLB in 20 years?
Since
25 years
2000, yeah.
With the Yankees, right. So there is still the matter of like, it doesn't happen. The dynasty doesn't always happen the same way in Major League Baseball, the same way that it can happen in other sports. Like, they're not guaranteed anything still, even with this team. It just helps them, I think, become more of a playoff team, which they probably already were, to be honest. But so half of their record, 103 million luxury tax penalty, was redirected to other clubs. So MLB has like the pay-in system, right? So if you don't make a certain amount of money, the Dodgers are essentially paying these other teams, giving them their money as revenue sharing. Now, the Padres aren't one of those because the Padres are too high in payroll. Am I getting that? I think I'm getting that correct.
Well, they were, right. The last 3 years they were, and then when they go back under, they get to re-qualify as a revenue payee.
Right. I think what's kind of interesting about the Dodgers before we move forward with the Padres is, the Frank McCourt days and the divorce days, I spoke to a few players who played for the Dodgers during that time, and they said there was an absolute freeze. I mean, during those ownership dispute days, they weren't signing anyone. They were in an absolute payroll freeze. It wasn't a good time to be a Dodger. And then I found an interesting article from 2016 where MLB slapped the Dodgers on the hand. They said, you're too far up on spending. Same thing that happened to the Padres. You've spent too much. You've got to reduce your debt. You can only spend XYZ in the coming years until you reduce your debt. So they got the same kind of penalty or the same kind of hand slap that the Padres got. They got bought by a very lucrative group, and they have utilized that TV deal to the best of their advantage and their sponsorships and everything by putting money back into their roster, right? But they also have kind of been through some of these, also some like, I wouldn't say sad times. They were still spending a lot of money, but they have had their hand slapped just like the Padres did. For the Padres, now you got to move forward. I mean, I think that there always had to be a notion in the front office's mind and in AJ Preller and his team's mind that they weren't going to get Roki. So absolutely, what's next? I mean, with Santander off the board, what's with Jurickson Profar? What's with your left fielder position or your who's next in the rotation? Who's going to come in and help balance out this rotation? Are your catchers set, or are you bringing in some catching help still? Is Martin Maldonado going to compete with Sullivan and Campusano? There's quite a few questions that still need to be answered for the Padres.
And those answers are coming due. And while I still will never forget that last year we sat in here in these studios for 2 months and waited for them to do something, and they did nothing the whole time. They did one thing in like 2.5 months, which was sign Jurickson to a 1-year, $1 million deal. That was it. Now that turned out to be the best signing in Major League Baseball in 2024. You don't get to repeat that. If you're going to pay him, you're going to pay him in 2025. But I get that AJ works along the margins of the market when he has to, when he is restrained in his spending. He waits for the bargain to fall out, and he's pretty, in a way, ruthless in terms of like he isn't covetous of a particular player and goes, no, we have to get him, and we're just going to pay to get him, even though it's more than we want. If he was, he would have signed Kyle Higashioka. He would have signed Kyle Higashi. He would have made them get more money.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a time, right, that was possible. You could go back and you could kind of up the payroll a little bit. Maybe that will be possible for the Padres going forward. Maybe there will be some flexibility there and an ability to spend over the luxury tax on some certain year. But yeah, those days of being able to just kind of sign everyone that you kind of had your eye on, which is kind of what the Dodgers are doing.
Yeah,
I would say that ship has sailed right now.
That ship has sailed, and when you're trying to make dynamic trades, you need the other side to be on the same page as you. And as long as options remain that you could do outside of making a deal, it's pretty hard to get somebody to pull the trigger on a deal when they could still kind of hem and haw and go, wait, we could sign a guy, we could promote a guy, we've got all these other options. So I think that's why we wind up in this months of feeling like we've been shut out.
Yeah.
Because he isn't jumping at a player. He isn't jumping at a moment. He's waiting for something to come to him at his pace, at his price.
And we all know AJ Preller does not like to wait. I think he's doing what he has to do in this situation to get the most that he can. You know what I mean? And so I think that it should be actually like, and I'm going to get so much, I know you guys are going to roll your eyes at me, but I really think that maybe his patience is a good thing in this situation. You know what I mean? Like, I understand, like, you're not seeing players signed or whatever, but perhaps he's waiting to pounce on a better deal than he can get if you try to do it right now, right? We won't know until the roster's on the field. We won't know what he is or isn't able to do, but I know he is someone that likes to make moves, you know? So the fact that he hasn't tells me that not that he won't, but that he's waiting for the right opportunity or the most lucrative opportunity for him. I think we can get to it in another segment, but there was an interesting article from our girl Katie Wu, who covers the Cardinals for The Athletic, and the front office of the Cardinals said straight out, we used to be great at player development. We are not good at player development right now. We need a team this is what the Padres said, remember, last year as well. We need to balance out our team with more players coming through the farm system. And that is how we need to act going forward. We used to be really good at that, and we've fallen behind the times in player development. And, you know, you do wonder, as some of these teams look around with the TV deals, with the whatever, how much emphasis will start going back to player development and how can we get players to come through the system better, because they're kind of looking ahead and saying, well, we've got the new CBA coming up. We've got a potential lockout. We've got this parity in payrolls that's really, really severe. How are we going to get the most out of our team? It might be in that farm system, in that player development system. And is there going to be some hard looks from teams at trying to better that as well?
Still a lot more to unpack, and we've got at least 2 more full segments of baseball talk before we get to some NFL weekend reactions, get to the 12 o'clock sports fix, and plenty more in the second half of the program. But, yeah, it's go time now. The Padres have to show their cards now. And whether it's this week, next week, a month and a half from now.
It's got to be at some point. They do need these players. So.
Something has to happen. Something has to come forth. And either it's making trades that are difficult, likely unpopular, but have to have a targeted goal at the end of maintaining your competitive window, you know, or it is, hey, we're going to actually sign players. You know, the old reporting's wrong. And I'm here to say, go sign Jurickson Profar. Figure it out. Figure out a way to do it. Go get us a catcher. Go get us another starting pitcher. Go get us another arm in the bullpen, because this team is good enough to get to the wild card next year, to be in the playoffs, to have the same shot they had this year, to go all the way. They're good enough. The base is good enough, but you've got to get the work in. And so far, the whole offseason has been hope that this lotto ticket I scratch comes up all sevens. And it didn't. It came up with a big LA interlocking once you scraped all the silver stuff off.
I hope that Preller and company have been kind of thinking about plan B, C, D, and E. And I imagine they have been. I think that they realized that there was probably a chance they didn't get Roki. So the question is now, when do you make these moves, right? Like when is the market going to, I guess, get to a point where you're going to be able to cash in on some of this?
Where is baseball's financial situation right now? Some national writers will tell you what's happening is great for the sport. I think we're probably headed toward a lockout or a strike in 2027. We'll get into that and a lot more in hour number 2. 11 o'clock in America's finest city and on the Annie and Elsten program, hour number 2 of the show. Welcome back. Annie Halbern, Craig Elsten, Braden Soprenet, coming to you on 97.3 FM radio into your cars, beaming all up and down the county and across the border as well. Coming to you on the Odyssey app, free to download, free to use, AUDACY. If you're there and you're at that listen live moment where you click the button, there's also a button there that says leave an audio message. You can message the show. Please do. Give us an audio message. We'll try and play it at Ask Us Anything. Make sure that Braden's looking for the audio messages. You get like a little ping or something when they leave one, right?
I get 0 notifications. I have to go back and check. I just have to check the voice message tab.
All right.
No voice messages to display. All right.
We'll
moving on.
Yeah, we'll remind you to check the tab later. So do that, Odyssey app. We are also, of course, on YouTube. You can find us on the 97.3 The Fan page on YouTube. Go there. If you're there, please smash that like button. Give us the old thumbs up. Hit subscribe to make sure that all of the shows are finding your algorithm right there on the YouTube app or on the YouTube webpage. And please do. Appreciate you all being there. It's been a wild chat day, but that's not shocking. It's truly not shocking. Now, I heard what Woodsy said earlier, and I kind of agreed emotionally in the moment, Annie, but then I want to restate the argument I made before because I'm not going to be vacillating. I had an intellectual argument that I'm standing by that I will represent. But I kind of agreed with him in the sense that when Sasaki signed, it was like, all right, he signed.
I was so happy he just signed.
He signed with L.A. He was going to sign with L.A.
We know where he's going.
He's not coming to us. It's over. Stop. At least we get to get out of the waiting room.
That's what I mean. Like, it wasn't that he signed with LA. It was just like, now we know we can move forward.
Yeah. When Tanner Scott signed, that
was a bummer.
It just made you feel like the whole dang sport's broken. Like you can get him too, and they can. And there's something important that people probably don't recognize off the top or internalize. The Dodgers are way over the fourth and final threshold within MLB's competitive balance tax. They are beyond the Cohen tax, quote unquote, threshold that they named for the Mets owner, but they should have called it the Dodgers tax because that's the team that's spending $70 million more than anyone else. When they sign Tanner Scott to an $18 million average annual deal, as they did, 4 years, $72 million. They pay another $19 million over the top as a tax. So he winds up being an over $35 million a year commitment for one lefty reliever that'll probably throw 60 innings for their team, the same price commitment that the Arizona Diamondbacks have to make to Corbin Burns. That's how much the Dodgers can spend on Tanner Scott. And now they're going to do it again, reportedly with Kirby Yates. We haven't seen the number, but he made like $7 million last year, I remember. So let's just say it's $10 million. They will then pay another $11 million. To MLB over the top, and it's $21 million for 30 innings of Kirby Yates. It's $36 million for 60 innings of Tanner Scott.
And sadly, the MLB teams, unless I'm misunderstanding it, the MLB teams who aren't spending, who are the beneficiaries of revenue spending, are probably like, spend away, Dodgers, because the more you go over the luxury tax, the more that gets put into our revenue sharing. Because that luxury tax pool is put into these teams that don't have these kinds of payrolls or spend that kind of money. So when you look at some owners who are probably like, this isn't fair and the Dodgers are doing something crazy and whatever, there's probably other owners that are like, oh, please spend so we can get some of that money when it comes back through to us. Kirby, I don't fault Kirby at all. He should go to whatever team wants him.
Sure.
It will be a bummer to see him in a Dodgers uniform just because Kirby's so great. It's to see Tanner leave. That was I felt like that was kind of expected. It hurts that it's going to a division rival. If you're a Padres fan, that's for sure. And to the Dodgers, that's for sure. But you expected him to you'd heard the rumors and you expected him to go to a team that was going to pay top dollar. And there were only so many teams that were going to do that. $35 million a year is something, though. I mean, especially for a reliever, you don't see teams shell out that kind of money because relievers are so up and down. You have one good year, then you have a bad year the next. You're spotty. There's a lot that goes on with relievers and giving that kind of money to a member of the bullpen. But he's got that closer money and then some. So he's, this is a lucrative time for him to make this deal. In another year or two, or another year or two before this year, he wouldn't have got that kind of money. So some of it's timing. Right. It's when you're signing.
Sure. And no, it absolutely is. But also LA is proving the point that the restrictions have no impact on them whatsoever.
Yeah. And I think that this is to me, it's like, it's hard to put the toothpaste back in the tube. The Dodgers aren't doing anything illegal per se. It's icky, but it's not illegal. It's frustrating, but it's not illegal. The grounds for them doing all of this, like I said earlier, have kind of been fertilized. They got bought by a very lucrative ownership group, the Guggenheim Group. They secured a TV rights deal that is paying them a lot of money, $300+ million a year. They have made smart moves in terms of sponsorships. They've got the highest attendance, or among the highest attendance in the league on home and road now. They've done things that have as much as the money thing does stink, they've also done some smart things. Like they've made some smart moves over there, and of course it's helped when you have a lot of money. That's for sure. But they've invested it back into their team quite a bit. But does MLB have a problem? It probably depends on which owner you ask. It depends on which player you ask, because the players, if they're making tons of money, they're not going to want things to change. They're going to want to continue to get that money, right? And that's their right. I mean, that's what a lot of people in that position would want. The owners, if they're still profiting, they're not necessarily going to care if things change. MLB has to look at the bigger picture here. But they've allowed these TV deals to go on for so long the way that they have. These guys are still under contract. I mean, the Mets are still under contract. I think through 2030 or something for the Dodgers, or past that. So you've got to have them break their contracts. I don't think that's going to happen. You've got to make this. How are you going to do it so that you put the toothpaste back in the tube is what I'm asking.
Right. And what's going to happen, and the way it's going to happen or not happen, is via a protracted labor dispute at the end of the next collective bargaining agreement.
But why would the players dispute the labor if they're getting paid more money than they ever have?
Here's how the dominoes tumble. Rob Manfred, Commissioner of Baseball, has already said that his big goal going into 2028 is to nationalize local television revenue. That's what he wants. That's what he wants. He wants to get all 30 teams to put it all into NFL style, to put it all into a pot, to share it all equally.
And can I quickly say something? I see so many comments about the Padres need to make a TV deal. They are in a deal. The Padres have made their TV deal. They made it with MLB Media. They are under the MLB umbrella. Can they start to get more advertising? Can they get something that helps them make a little bit more money on streaming or advertising? Yes, but they have secured a deal. Their deal is with MLB.
Yes, it is. And it's also extremely naive to just go get a better TV deal. Go find a cable company that's going to give you $60 or $75 million a year. Yeah,
you could get those, but there's carriage fees with all that. Well, that, like what you just said, that's probably not happening in this TV landscape.
It's not happening, period.
And then the carriage fees for them to be on different direct TVs or whatever. There's obviously that's why you always see those disputes between the places, because those carriage fees have gotten higher and et cetera, et cetera. So there's, Yeah.
MLB Media is the place of last resort for Padres television.
Well, any team.
For any team. If they could have gone literally anywhere else to get paid for it, they would have. The fact that they don't, it's not. See, this is the thing I need to parse. I feel like I always need to parse. And I know it's hard to parse things on the radio, and people only hear half of what you say and they tune in and out anyway. And it's natural. It's part of our job description. But it's not virtuosity that brought Los Angeles their TV deal and denied San Diego their TV deal. It wasn't because somebody screwed up at the Padres and Bally dropped them. No. The system collapsed from underneath their feet at Bally Sports. The Diamond Group declared bankruptcy. That collapsed from under their feet. The Spectrum deal was created in 2011. Okay, a completely different media atmosphere than exists in 2025. So you can't say, if you're out there as a cash, say, well, the Padres just aren't virtuous enough as an organization to have not found their billion-dollar TV deal. It's a different world.
It's a different world, and I think that there could have been some strong arming by MLB, too, especially for teams that were maybe up against debt ratio and already having, certain whatever financial at least constraints here and there, like the Diamondbacks weren't up against debt ratio, but the Rockies, the Diamondbacks, you don't see those being like lucrative, them getting lucrative deals either, right? Like, so I think there could have been some strong arming from MLB, like we really, we're not telling you have to come over here, but this is, kind of where we want to go with the network in the long run, et cetera, et cetera. I think Jake from State Farm in the chat says, just do like MLS and have Apple buy the league rights instead of market deals. And this gets back to what Craig was talking about. That's ultimately what Rob Manfred wants. He wants to have enough teams under his umbrella to then take it and sell it to an Apple or a Roku or ESPN or whatever. And now that money that from that rights fee trickles back out to those clubs. But right now they don't have that.
And that would require the Dodgers breaking their contract with Spectrum.
Or the Yankees, or the Cubs, the Mets.
The same thing as trying to get Notre Dame in a conference.
Right. You can still...
They won't do it because they want to keep the money for themselves.
And you can still sell. He can go... Rob Manfred can take this package of MLB teams and be like, look, we've got the Padres and we've got the Diamondbacks and we've got the Rockies, but you're not going to get as lucrative of a rights deal because you don't have the big guns
and you're splitting
in your
it.
Deal, in your package.
And you have to split it with other teams.
Yeah.
It's simple business.
Right.
It's everybody in the chat. It's simple business. There's not enough companies in town to advertise to account for the amount of money that you have to pay in order to broadcast the Padre games. There's not enough. That's why you are a small that's why this is a small market. People hate the term small market because it's always been used as a degrading remark, but the reality of the situation is, despite the population, despite the energy around the Padres, despite how much the ownership has paid, it will never change the fact that San Diego is and will always be a small market, and that has nothing to do with any of us. It has everything to do with where we sit geographically. It's just that's just how it is.
Yeah,
and not one company is going to hash out hundreds of millions of dollars who won't be able to get even 50% of it back in ad revenue. If you don't have the companies to sell the ads, you will never make your money. And if you're not making money, you're not just going to give it away to some organization because you want them to be good at baseball.
And we saw kind of when you see Rob Manfred, who said publicly that the Padres have about 40,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
That's 40,000, but it's probably not going to jump to 80,000. It's not a situation like the Raiders or the Cowboys where you've got buy-in from worldwide.
Traditional
you know what I'm saying?
teams
it's
that
more,
used to be on
that's where your number's
nationally
going to be around
across the country.
Yeah.
Right,
like
exactly.
the Cardinals,
or
like
the Braves,
like the Braves,
Yeah.
like all the teams that had TV contracts before games were on TV every single day, and every team was on television, and you had fans across the entire United States. It won't happen like that.
And my main point with that, and where you were going, is this has been the environment. This has been the environment. MLB said, "Hey, go out, get your own." What's the word I want to use? Starts with an R. Not rights, but what was Bally's? It was a
regional sports network.
A regional sports network. Thank you.
RSN.
Yes. Go partner, get your RSNs, or start your own station, or find your own deals and make your own contracts, and et cetera, et cetera. And now they want it all to come under the MLB umbrella. Well, we're probably 10 years too late for that. This probably should have happened a while back. And now you're trying to catch up and get it done in the middle of a CBA. I think that there's promise for it. We just don't know how it's going to turn out.
Right. So, okay, we have to take a break, but I'd said there's not. How do we get to the spot where the players wind up in conflict with ownership?
We can do that
in 2027. The first domino is trying to consolidate television rights, right? We've already established many teams would be like, heck yeah, we want to do that. And 6 teams would be like, no. And one team in particular would be like, hell no. What are you going to do to make us whole if you're going to do that? That question leads us to domino number 2, which could lead us to 2027. Back with that part of the story next on Annie and Elsten. Back with you on Annie and Elsten with a reminder, you can listen to 97.3 The Fan with your smart speaker. You can. Just ask it. Ask it real nice. Hey, smart thing, whatever your name is, play 97.3 The Fan, and then it
Smart
works.
thing.
A smart thing. That's the one I bought. I bought it on discount. Was that a below market deal? All right, welcome back. We've been talking all baseball here along the way, and I told you there's a set of dominoes that are in place right now. I submit to you, and honestly, national writers don't disagree. They just elide many of the facts. This is a time of competitive imbalance in baseball.
Yeah, no doubt.
That we haven't seen since the reserve clause. We haven't seen this level of competitive imbalance since the reserve clause. And when people compare the Dodgers to the 98 to 2000 Yankees, I say, no, compare them to the Yankees of the 50s. That's more of the direction we're going in, where they're either going to be in it and win it or in it and lose it every single year, because they can now spend up to $100 million over the next highest club, okay? But that's part and parcel of an imbalance that has been created from local television revenue, which is only partially distributed, and yes, it is partially distributed, but even when you distribute half of your money, if you're the Dodgers, that still leaves you $170 million behind that no one else has.
And you wonder if it's going to catch up to the Dodgers at some point. Like, you wonder, I mean, I do. I look at all this and I'm like, okay, maybe they can just keep doing this in perpetuity, but maybe there is a point where this catches up and you got to pay the piper even if you're the Dodgers.
So, Ken Rosenthal wrote a long column today, which a lot of it I really, really, really hate. I mean, a lot of it I just can't stand. However, I do console myself, and before I get into the next thing, the domino, just to say this, keep this in mind for all of us out there. To a national television pundit or a national writer for baseball, a super team is good for them. A super team is good for baseball from their perspective. It's a clearly defined hero, a clearly defined villain. It's dramatic storylines. It's something that they can chase and report. They think so fondly of dynasties of the past and hope to have the right to cover one of them as well. So when you see a Buster Olney or a Matt Snyder or a Brandon Doolittle, or pick your same favorite one that you want to, put up on a pike, right? They all share the same thing. It's good for them. Understand, it's good for them. And a lockout or a strike is really, really, really bad for them. It's bad for the baseball media business when they are in strike. It's bad for us. It's bad for them. So every one of these stories that is written kind of like, hey, who cares about the financial imbalance? Hey, why doesn't your owner spend more? Hey, ignore the TV. Yeah, it's bad, but the Dodgers are trying. It's good. Get a richer owner. Literally, Ken Rosenthal in his column has as one of his issues to fix, just go get a richer owner. Like go find somebody even richer, and it'll be happy. But he does get onto something here. And this is what I was talking about to Annie earlier. Now quoting from Rosenthal. As the television landscape shifts, Manfred wants to create national packages for major streaming companies to bid on in 2028. The Dodgers and other large market clubs holding the most valuable rights likely will oppose the idea. Manfred could attempt to alleviate those concerns by tying the national TV package to a cap, but then the players stand in the way.
Yeah.
And those are the dominoes, Annie.
Absolutely.
Right? It starts with that, it goes to here, and then the players go, hell no, and that's where we wind up.
And that's where you might end up in the lockout, right? Because among other issues, I guess, but the CBA, remember, has to be unified. It has to be agreed upon by both parties, by the ownership and by the Players Association. So, again, when you've got players who are getting paid crazy amounts of money, and I think even they realize that, you're not going to want that cash flow to stop. And I think they can threaten that somehow, but then they've got to make sure that you're still giving the players something that they want. And can you threaten that really without people like Scott Boras unifying in a certain sense and being like, whoa, they've got nothing here. There's just going to be so many parties that are going to make this kind of messy if it gets to this point, which lockouts tend to get a little messy anyways. Or sorry, CBAs, new CBAs tend to get a little messy anyways. But there's a lot to go on here. If you're Rob Manfred, that's your legacy. That's what you want to leave. You want to leave this TV deal and be like, look, I got this done, and I just don't know that he's going to be able to. Like I said, you're trying to put the toothpaste back into the tube. If they're going to have to get enough owners to believe that this is hurting them more than it's helping them, which you do have. I mean, of course you have owners that are like, this sucks too, like what the Dodgers are doing. But then you have other owners who are like, and I saw quotes this weekend from other owners who are like, look, they've used their money smartly. They've made good investments. They've done certain things like. And then beyond that, there's politics, right? Like, remember when all this happened with the Cowboys and Jerry Jones and the NFL? Like, you've got politics in this as well. Like, some owners band together, and some owners have their own little side groups where they're agreeing not to vote on this or to vote on that. And someone might say something publicly, but then vote the opposite way when the doors are closed. So there's a lot that's going to go on here.
There absolutely is, and it will continue to get potentially worse. But the one thing that really, really kind of grinds my gears is when the national folks say, well, just go spend more. And that's literally the first line of Ken Rosenthal's column. He says, deep in the heart of every baseball fan fuming about the spending of the Dodgers, there lies an uncomfortable truth. You're just mad your owner isn't doing the same thing. That's cute, but it's ridiculous. It's cute, but it's ridiculous. And here's the thing. It's so important to keep in mind. You have this revenue sharing system that exists in big league baseball, including the Dodgers being the number one payer into it by $100 of millions of dollars, right? The number one payer into it with their TV revenue, with their overall revenue. There's a giant pot that does get split between the teams that are designated as non-payees. You're either a payer or a payee, right? When you go over the luxury tax, when you go over the CBT, you disqualify your franchise from revenue sharing. You lose that money. Right. So when, for example, in 2021, when we went over the line to get Daniel Hudson, and we went $1 million over the line, we not only cost ourselves fees and fines and whatnot, but also lost the revenue sharing money. Because once you reset underneath, we're of a level that we would get the money. This exists across baseball. So when you're pointing a finger at the Twins, or you're pointing a finger at the Guardians, or name your team and saying, why don't you spend more? Why don't you spend more? Why don't you spend more? What they're really saying is, why don't you spend more? But not too much. Because otherwise you're going to lose this $80 million check. Right. That gets striped to you. So why wouldn't you love your captors? You know what I mean, Annie? Why wouldn't you praise the Dodgers?
The system is flawed, and I mean this goes on, I think, in a lot of sports, but a lot more so in baseball, because in the NFL, you're one draft away because of the salary cap. Because of the way that the NFL is structured, you're one draft away from completely revamping your team, or like one move away. Like you can be a small market. I mean, it's not like the Kansas City Chiefs are a large market. They are not a large market. They're a small market team, but in the NFL, you've got the fairness, I guess you could say, that you're all on somewhat of level playing ground, like because of the way that the money has to be spent within the payroll. So it's different in Major League Baseball, and I think that there's also a notion, probably from fans, why wouldn't they believe this? That your team always wants to win, that your team actually wants to be in the championship and wants to spend money to get to the championship, when that's not the truth. The truth is there's teams out there that just want to be able to be profitable and be able to entertain and be able to get butts in the seats, and they're not all in on winning, necessarily, or they are maybe in the sense of, like, I mean, could you say that the Athletics were all in on winning the last 5 years that they were in Oakland?
For sure, no.
Even though their owner is very wealthy.
Right.
Very wealthy, and is spending now. Their group is spending now because they've been forced to by Major League Baseball. But what I'm saying is, like, it's not totally altruistic down the board. And so when I say that the Dodgers are paying in and other teams are receiving it, that's what I mean is, like, it's not, oh, great, good job, Dodgers. It's that some teams, like you just mentioned, might be kind of okay with this agreement or this arrangement because it's the best they can do in their market, and they kind of need the help. Because there is no floor cap or whatever. So, well, that's it, right? It's complicated.
That's it. The way that you create a disincentive for the Pittsburgh Pirates of MLB to simply lay back, accept the check, sign a guy once in a while to a $5 million deal, like Martin Perez, and just continue to cruise along in Loserville, is because you make a ton of money doing it. And the other way to do it, doesn't guarantee you a ton of money. The other way, reinvesting all that money in your player payroll could create a virtuous cycle, or it could create what happened to the Pirates in the 2010s. A couple of one-game appearances in the wild card, one and done.
Yeah.
See you later. Fan base gets disincentivized. You're not working from the same spot. If one team has 20x wealth of the other teams and then is giving the teams the amount of wealth that they need to operate, you really don't have a system where the lower teams are incentivized to rise up against their captors.
Now, their argument back would be, well, the Dodgers have had this deal in place, I believe, since like 2011
or 13.
11 or 13. I think it's 13. And they've only won 2 championships, and one was 2020, which is questionable, but okay, give it to them. So the argument back would be like, yeah, okay, they get to spend a lot of money, but doesn't mean that they're winning every single year. Doesn't mean that they're buying a championship every single year. They're not. They're getting kicked out in 2022, good Lord, 2022 by the Padres.
Right.
You know, they almost got beat again by the Padres. So I think that would be the argument back, that like, okay, well, so what? Like they're not winning every single year. But it is true that I think the World Series champions, besides the Braves and someone else, like it's always been like top 10 in payroll, or at least the last 10 years or something.
Absolutely. And what the Dodgers,
there's a few that weren't.
The Dodgers
Royals
do is they win the West every year. You know, every year but one, they have won the West through the 2010s to the 2020s. So, yeah, and again, this is the thing that drives me crazy. Okay, we're the danger, so we'll go a couple minutes longer. Like, for example, again, here from Rosenthal. Owners and some fans crave a salary cap and accompanying floor, believing it would prove a competitive panacea. But super teams exist in cap sports. The Kansas City Chiefs are going to their 7th straight AFC championship game. In the NBA, elite players frequently maneuver to join forces. Okay, yeah, but those franchises are all playing under the same set of rules.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So when the Chiefs go to 7 straight
Bills
AFC
are
championships,
not a big market, right?
When they win 2 straight championships and go for a third, that's because they're succeeding. They're exceeding their expectation within the constraints of the rules of the league. Same in the NBA. That's why Oklahoma City, Kansas City, these are places that you can be a champion in these sports. Whereas you get to the MLB, is Kansas City going to be a champion? Only if they get incredibly lucky through 4 playoff series. But all that baseball's pundits want to hide behind is the inherent random stupidity of their playoff.
Yeah, I must have gotten the Chiefs from that. But exactly what I mean in that sense is what you just said, is that there's a more level playing field. You get to, when you're a small market in the NFL, you aren't penalized for being a small market. You're pretty much on level playing ground. Like, it's all about making good decisions in your front office and good choices in your coaching staff and your players.
Anybody know the population of Green Bay?
It's very small.
It's less than El Cajon.
It's not a big market.
It's less than El Cajon. El Cajon has more residents than Green Bay does. Green Bay has 105,000 people in their town.
I do want to say, too, Shota in the chat is right. This revenue sharing deal, this situation they're in, was agreed upon by the players, by the ownerships. Like, the situation they're in is simply a mess of their own making. Everybody agreed to this when it happened. And now things have changed because of the RSNs. Things have changed. So that's why there's probably going to be at least trying to change some of this situation that they're in. But this was all, hey, we're in from both sides when it all got, hammered out in the CBAs.
And you know what? Normal Heights in the chat. He says this is, or he or she, they say, this is all very technical. You're right. You're 100% right. This is technical. But if you don't get into the technicalities of it, if you don't get into the weeds, then you wind up finding yourself on corners of the street that you probably don't want to be on. And one of those is just to lash out. And why didn't you spend more? Why didn't you do more? Why isn't it this? Why isn't it that? And that's what the information is here for, is to help you understand the system. And you're 100%, everyone agreed. And now the Dodgers have shown just how much you can exploit the system. And I'm sorry, and I promise we'll break. In the NBA, this happened. This happened. The Warriors could outspend everybody. They could spend literally double their payroll than other teams. And then through very hard negotiations that involved the owners opening their books and guaranteeing a 50-50
Open
revenue
your
split.
books. I would love to see them.
Right. Absolutely. As a result, they came up with a system whereby now you can't do what the Warriors did. And that's what the Dodgers are doing. They're just saying penalty schmenalty. We've got unlimited money, so it's just telling me what check I have to write.
I agree with what you're saying, but you've got to convince the players, and the players are getting guaranteed money for but more so than in any other sport, in NFL, in NBA.
Yeah.
I think they could probably learn from what the NBA did.
Yes.
But you've got to figure out a way. You've got to or you've got to threaten with, like, we aren't playing baseball. No one's going to get paid until we figure out this TV thing.
Yeah. Let's take a timeout. When we come back, we'll start to shift things up a little bit. We still haven't gotten to Jurickson, though. Jurickson's next up.
Jurickson.
He's next up.
I think so.
He's on the on-deck circle now.
Is out, so that leaves Jurickson as probably your next best outfielder, right? Like the player that teams would want. Santander, $18 million a year, look like something like that. $18 million for 5 years.
Yeah.
So where does that leave Jurickson?
So we got to get to that. We got to get to football as we continue into the second half of the show. So let's take a quick time out and get to all these things. Andy and Elsten, San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. All right, trying to put a capper on this, and we're going to transition out. We're going to get to football in the second half of the show. We're going to get to some other things. But again, just a couple of points and I want this to be hopefully a point of optimism. I know sometimes any people bumped against me on this, especially at the end of last regular season, but you heard me say it from the beginning of our show. I don't care about the Dodgers. I don't worry about the Dodgers.
I mean, you can't. Got to worry about your own team and how it's going to perform.
I think it is freeing to state and admit that LA is the overwhelming favorite to win the World Series. The rest of the decade, they are. Give them the offseason crown. They've got it. They've got the money. They've got the resources. They've got the club. However, here's what they don't have. They don't have the ability to restrict the number of playoff spots available based on the number of games they win. They can win 105 games. They could win 135 games. They could go 155-7. And even so, they will be in the number one seed in the NL bracket. There will be 3 wild card teams that will gain entry into the tournament just like they did. And they'll have to play one of them in a best 3 out of 5.
Yeah, and I mean, rarely in sports do things go on paper in real life. Like, or whatever. Didn't say that right. Rarely in sports do things go in real life the way that they looked on paper. So I think, look, they've obviously put together a lot of talent on that team, and they're bettering their chances of being in the playoffs, which were pretty good anyways. Let's be real, right? And if they are healthy and they've got a dominant team, or they're a cohesive team, then yeah, they give themselves a good shot. But again, that's why you play the game. I mean, there's so much that could happen between now and then. There's so many ifs that even for the Dodgers, like, could end up being something that hurts them. You know, will they have a cohesive clubhouse? Will there be too many stars in there? Will there be injuries? And I get what you're saying about that when you say, well, now you're looking at the randomness of baseball, which you're right. I mean, that's kind of what you're looking at. But the Padres still have a good team. The Padres should be able to get into the playoffs with the team they have. They should be competitive. Yes, they can improve in certain areas, and they're not done yet. Hopefully they do improve in those areas. But they're definitely not out of it by any means. I mean, the Padres have a chance to contend here and to go deep in the playoffs and to contend for a championship. And that's the beauty of how MLB's postseason is so random.
Yes.
I mean, it's so random now. It's almost like unfairly random sometimes, you could say, but that's kind of what they've made now. I guess that's the silver lining in this, is that you can be the best team all season, the regular season, and you have a bad 5-game series, and that's it. You're done.
Right. And if this was the English Premier League, there truly would be not that much. All we'd be caring about is, can we finish in the top 4? Can we go to Champions League? Can we finish in the top 6? Can we go to Europa? You know, to finish the analogy, because there's no playoff in the EPL. Just the best team wins. So it would basically be over before the season started. We'd just be waiting for them to lift the cup at the end of the year. But that's not the case in baseball, because baseball is stupid. Baseball has silly randomness. It's the most random sport. You need to play a best of 27 to guarantee that the better team wins 80% of the time, which is what happens in NBA series. So, again,
I mean, baseball would be fair if the playoffs were like 2 months long and you're playing like a long extended series of whatever's, you know what I mean? Or a month, like, because of right, exactly. You're playing 162 games and now you're playing for 3, or you're playing for 5, or you're playing one series, right? So, yeah, you've obviously got to get through all those teams and everything, but how many times have we seen in baseball, you have one bad week? It doesn't mean you're a bad team. It means you had a bad week, and that's enough to take you out.
That's it, because baseball is a random sport.
Yeah.
Baseball is built on random occurrences, and because of that, it will inherently sort wrong more often than it sorts right. And so even though the Dodgers are the overwhelming favorites to be the number 1 seed in the NL for the remainder of the decade, without interruption, it would still be a less than majority chance, probably even a less than 1 in 5 chance for them to win the title every one of those years.
And I read from quite a few of their beat writers over the weekend, and they talked about how the Dodgers are operating as if they lost to the Padres. They're operating as if they lost last year, and there's still a sting from losing to the Padres in 2022. They're operating with kind of like this edge, right? Like this feeling like they're still, I guess, vulnerable. You know, and so I think that that's kind of also a credit to the rest of the National League. I mean, that they feel like the rest of the National League, the Padres included, are on their heels and have the chance to beat them. Also, for Friedman, for their GM, he made an interesting comment a few weeks ago that he doesn't want to buy in July. He said it is the worst time. They end up overpaying for whoever they need at the trade deadline. He's trying to get out ahead of it, and his goal is to not have to make these big trades at the trade deadline because you end up giving too much away. So they've got a clear strategy on their end. We'll see if they hold to it.
Yeah.
But they're trying to get out of having to do much at the trade deadline.
Yeah, because if you're 110 at the deadline, you don't need to trade for anyone.
No, you don't.
You're 90 games over 500. You're fine.
Yeah, and I mean, who knows with the Dodgers? I mean, if they're way out ahead, and we saw this a few years ago, and they're sitting around the last month of the season because they're so far ahead, no one can really threaten them for any playoff for the number one seed. Or the top of their division, then, we saw what happened with that. They can get complacent as well. So I know there's a lot of ifs here, and I get that. And clearly, they're a good team, and they've put together a really good team. But the Padres do still have an opportunity to win this all and contend and be right up there with them.
Yeah, it's not pulling the curtain on the Padres.
Right.
The Padres, those big contracts are there, and they're going to stick around. And it's funny how we go over time from oh my gosh, so many commitments to hey, you know what? There are these commitments in place. And whoever the owner is next year or another, those commitments remain. They're in place. They can't be taken down. You can't just tear this team apart. There's only certain things you can even trade off of this team.
I mean,
So,
and I mean,
there's a stability there.
You might look back in 5 years. I mean, again, though, hindsight is so hard. Could you make the argument, well, maybe you shouldn't have inked all those contracts. Maybe they shouldn't all have been made. Maybe you should have allowed yourself some more payroll flexibility, et cetera, et cetera. And, hindsight's hard because you make decisions in that moment and things change. But it also could be the opposite. It could be hey, those contracts now are very affordable in the grand scheme of things. And those players are still contributing, and then they're still helping us get to a championship or get into the postseason. So that's the story that's yet to be written, is kind of how that works out.
Now, before we get out of this hour, we got to get to Jurickson, because the Blue Jays signed Anthony Santander, who was the next best outfielder on the market. He got, I think it was 5 years, $90 million. There's a 6-year club option. There's a mechanic in there where Santander can opt out halfway, or the Blue Jays can guarantee the last year and kill the opt out, kind of like with Garrett Cole. So that's happened. Santander is in Toronto today. I saw the Blue Jays social media of him putting on the jersey. That's done and dusted, which means the next free agent by ranking in outfield up is Jurickson Profar. Jurickson, it's your time to take the stage. This is it. This is your time. And guess who's also interested in Jurickson Profar? The Toronto Blue Jays. No one's taking their money all year. They've got a hole burning in their pocket. They want to spend this sweet, sweet cash, and they would be perfectly happy to throw Jurickson into their outfield mix and out of ours. I'm here to say, and I know I said it last week too, it was so funny. A year ago, Annie and I were on complete opposite ends of this, and now we're completely aligned as possible, I believe. I would like the Padres to sign Jurickson Profar, and honestly, I'm not really caring too much about the cost. I'd like to see them sign this guy because he is extremely important to this team. He did stuff last year that is provably durable in terms of the changes he made and the improvements he made to his game. There was nothing fluky about it. All the metrics bear out. Profar looks like one of the soundest buys on the free agent market this year. More than Santander, by the way. More than Alex Bregman. More than several of the guys who are still out there. Profar is a guy, but he makes more sense to us than even other teams. So I want the Padres to find a way. And if that way means you have to give him 3 years, $50 million, okay, do it, and then figure out the rest, who you have to trade or what you have to do. But he needs to be a part of this team. And of all the bad things that have happened and us being shut out since inning 3 of game 3 of the NLDS, this would be the zero hung that would make me the most upset since.
Well, you're usually the one that's talking about the numbers and how impossible. So I feel you on this. I also would love to have Jurickson Profar back with the Padres. I think that he is someone who helps this team in so many ways, not just on the field, but off the field as well. And it's not even the vibes above replacement, which I know we joke about, but I do think that he's tapped into something offensively that he can emulate, that he can keep going forward and even improve upon. And it works well within what the Padres are trying to do, which is line to line, right? Hit it in the gaps. You don't need to hit a home run every time you're at the plate. It works well also just in the environment that the Padres are in. Jurickson wants to be in San Diego, no doubt about it. Can they sign him for $50 million? I don't think they can. And I think that's where it gets tough is you'd have to trade away so many players. Well, now you've got all these holes on your roster.
Right.
And so it's can you work out a creative deal if he really wants to stay in San Diego? Can you work out a fair and creative deal where you're able to give him money? Maybe he does defer. I don't know. Maybe you backload it in a certain way. I think that they hopefully are trying to do that. I mean, it's going to be a shame if we ever learn that like there wasn't even a meeting of the minds here where we could try to work something out. But I saw him linked to the Mets as well over the weekend. And I do wonder, like, because we haven't heard anything about him, how are teams valuing him now that Santander's off the board? Is he getting this $18 million a year? I think he'd be more close to maybe like 13 to 15. But is he going to get that? Is he going to get that from a team in a long-term contract? I just don't know if it's going to be the Padres.
I don't know if it is either. What I know is that this team has a different bite with Jurickson on it than it does without it. And
For sure.
I further know that when you go the next rung down on the free agent outfielder list, you get to someone that's entirely less palatable than Jurickson Profar is. And you're going to spend almost as much to bring in the next guy down the road. Or you're trading something really important off your team to bring in a young, unproven outfielder. And now you're asking them to assemble, to assume that position in left field. Jurickson's not 36, He's in his early 30s.
He has an edge. He wants to be the best. He wants to compete.
I think he changes this Padres team. I really do. Time has brought me over the line on this particular discussion point. And as such, I think of all the things like, okay, we lost Tanner Scott. That stinks, but we didn't have him at the beginning of the year last year. We lost Higashioka. That stinks. But Higashioka had a career year at age 35. That's a weird investment to make on age 36. Donovan Solano was so good for this team. It really bums me out that he's not here. The Mariners gave him $3.5 million at age 37 to come join their bench. Okay, I get it. All of these things we can overcome. Profar is a real, honest to goodness part of the win condition for the San Diego Padres. So if you don't get him, you need to get that back. And I'm here to tell you, if the Padres lose Profar, there's not another guy out there waiting to give you a 380 on base percentage or even a declined year drop, 350 on base percentage. There's nobody out there for that. It's going to be a completely different offense if Profar isn't there helping set the table. So, hey, I'm done with the excuses, honestly. I get where they are with the cap and everything else. It's time to start making moves. It's time to turn over your cards. And if the cards are we're not going to spend anything and we're going to let everyone go, we all need to know that. We need to know that as we get to the spring. So it's time. It's go time for the Padres. It's not doom time. It's not gloom time. It's go time. Time to go.
Yeah, go back and read Mike Petriello, MLB.com, his Jurickson Profar free agent breakdown analysis that he just recently did. I think he did a good job in showing what his year was really like and why he believes that he can tap into it in future years. But you gotta make tough business deals. You gotta let go of certain players. This is one that I believe you really try hard to keep if you can. He's a glue guy.
Would love to see it.
Yeah.
Would love to see it. You got to make some moves along the way. This would be a good one to bring back. Let's take a time out. Halfway done with the show. When we come back, all the sports news from the weekend that was, the 12 o'clock Sports Fix, national teams, your local teams. It all comes your way next on 97.3 The Fan. Here we go, 12 o'clock on a Tuesday. Lunch hour is here. Welcome back. It's the halfway point of the Annie and Elsten program. Annie Heilbrunn, Craig Elsten, Braden Suprenant, all together in our Odyssey studios overlooking Murphy Canyon. Time to bring you all the sports news from the weekend that was and up to the minute as well on the 12 o'clock Sports Fix, beginning with Annie's baseball report.
Okay, here we go. After a long winter, Roki Sasaki has chosen the Dodgers as his team going forward. He will get $6.5 million from the Dodgers and is signed for the next 6 years with LA. I should say he'll get a $6.5 million signing bonus. He'll make the league minimum,
Correct.
He'll make the league minimum. Old friend Tanner Scott and the Los Angeles Dodgers are in agreement on a 4-year, $72 million contract. Scott, 30, was the best free agent reliever available this winter and is now part of the Dodgers' pen. With Tanner Scott's deal, the Dodgers' luxury tax payroll for 2025 will exceed $375 million. That is about $70 million more than the next highest team, Philadelphia. And another old friend to the Dodgers. They have reached a tentative agreement with free agent closer Kirby Yates pending a physical. I don't see numbers on that yet.
Haven't seen any numbers.
Anyone else to the Dodgers that I need to be aware of in the last half hour? Or did they take I don't know.
Apparently they have signed the Coronado Bridge, and
say.
now it actually points to L.A.
Did they take Phillip Rivers or something? Right.
AM 570 has hired Tony and Chris.
Hey.
Easy now.
Oh, gosh. Okay, yeah. Don't
They're taking all of us.
Don't give them ideas.
don't believe that out there,
Don't give
people.
them ideas.
Right.
Oh, but
They've acquired
but believe
us.
that they acquired the Coronado Bridge. Okay.
One's
was
far more
believable.
realistic. Yeah, one's,
Okay, the Toronto Blue Jays and outfielder Anthony Santander are in agreement on a 5-year contract worth $92.5 million. The deal includes an opt-out clause and an escalated team option provision for 2030 that can make the deal worth $110 million over 6 years. The Padres are signing old friend and left-hander Austin Davis to a minor league contract per Robert Murray. Davis gets an invite to spring training. He has a 5.77 career ERA over 6 years in the big leagues, but he was with the Padres in 2024 for a very short cup of coffee.
Yeah, I remember that.
Gave up 8 runs over 7 innings while pitching for San Diego, and that is, again, just a report that we've seen from Robert Murray. Coverage of the 2025 BBWAA Hall of Fame announcement begins tonight at 4 p.m. on MLB Network, 4 p.m. Eastern, that is. Yeah, so 1 p.m. here?
Yeah, but then
Okay.
they don't actually announce it till 3, I think.
Leading up to the results being revealed at 6 p.m. Eastern. You are correct. So, Ichiro, I would imagine, is
Ichiro, CC,
gonna get-
Billy Wagner.
There you
Probably the
go.
3.
Probably the 3, and we'll have obviously all of that tomorrow.
Yes. Okay.
That's it in Major League Baseball.
Did
All
you,
right.
did you wish Jake Cronenworth a happy 31st
Jake
birthday?
Cronenworth, thank you for that. Jake Cronenworth, happy
married,
31st
didn't he?
birthday. Also, he got married over the weekend.
Yeah.
Joe Musgrove and his fiancee Erica were there. I saw Craig Stammen and his wife Audrey, maybe some other Padres players, I'm not sure. But they had a beautiful wedding in Mexico. So congrats to Jake Cronenworth on becoming a husband. And having his birthday the next day. It's a big week for Jake.
Yeah,
Big week.
huge week.
Big week for Jacob, yes.
Big week. Here's Braden.
All right, here we go. We got some NFL news for you. Bears have finally hired their head coach. They named Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson as their new head coach. The team announced Tuesday. Johnson, who has been the Lions OC the past 3 seasons, fills the job vacated by Matt Eberflus when he was fired on November 29th. Johnson will be the 19th head coach in the franchise's 105-year existence. That's the big NFL news for you. College football playoff national championship ended yesterday with a Ohio State victory over Notre Dame. With that, final AP Top 25 poll is out. Ohio State unanimously gets the number 1 spots in the AP Top 25, followed by Notre Dame,
for Georgia.
Oregon, Texas, Penn State, Georgia, Arizona State, Boise State, Tennessee, and Indiana in the top 10. Mississippi jumps into the top 12, passing SMU at 12, BYU at 13, Clemson and Iowa State in the top 15 in the AP top 25. College football playoff hasn't rolled out, quote, tweaks to the 12-team format for 2025. No major decisions were made regarding the future format of the 12-team college football playoff on Sunday, but tweaks to the 2025 season haven't been ruled out, according to College Football Playoff Executive Director Rich Clark. Sunday's annual meeting of the FBS commissioners and the presidents and chancellors who control the playoff wasn't expected to produce any immediate course of action, but it was the first time that people with the power to change the playoff met in person to begin a review of the historic expanded bracket. Clark said the group talked about a lot of really important issues, but the meeting at the Signia by Hilton set the stage for bigger decisions that need to be made, quote, very soon. Commissioners would have to unanimously agree upon any changes to the 12-team format to implement them for the 2025 season. A lot of those commissioners are a group of 5 conferences, which will never vote for any of the changes, so we'll see. I would say it's possible, but I don't know if it's going to happen or not, Clark said on the eve of the College Football Playoff National Championship game, which happened yesterday. So we'll see if there's any more updates on that. College basketball, new top 25. Auburn, the number 1 team in the country at 17-1, followed by Duke, Iowa State, Alabama, Florida. Tennessee, Houston, Michigan State, Kentucky, and Marquette round up the top 10 in the AP top 25. Bad news, San Diego fans of all San Diego schools, 0-3 over the weekend. UNLV beat the Aztecs 76-68 at Viejas Arena. Aztecs now dropped to 4-3 in the Mountain West Conference and are now listed as a bubble team to make the NCAA tournament. They will play Air Force on Wednesday. LMU beat up on San Diego 77-70 up in Los Angeles. San Diego now drops to 1-6 in West Coast Conference play. And then the other game was the Tritons of UC San Diego. They also lost on Saturday. They lost to Riverside. As UCR beat them. Yes, UCR was able to knock off the Tritons. The Tritons and the Toreros will be back in action on Thursday. Riverside beat UCSD 85-81, drops UCSD to 5-2 in Big West play. Top 10 high school boys basketball. Montgomery took a loss this week against Olympian, but they still remain the number 1 team in San Diego. 16 first-place votes at 18-2. San Marcos jumps to 2 after Carlsbad lost to Torrey Pines this week. Carlsbad is now the 3rd best team in the county, according to the UT's top 10, followed by Torrey Pines, Olympian, Cathedral Catholic, Mission Bay, Santa Fe Christian, Mission Hills, and St. Augustine. Other receiving votes, La Jolla Country Day, Mira Mesa, and San Diego High. Your top 10 and receiving votes for the best teams in San Diego County for boys high school basketball. And that's a look at the NFL, college, and high school sports. Here's Craig with Local.
I've got it all for you. And then a quick look at the NBA and NHL before we wrap things up. But I've got big soccer news.
Just saw this.
Big soccer news. We're going to start with San Diego FC. San Diego FC made a long-rumored acquisition that we have talked about in previous multiple sports fixes official this morning. They have announced that Luca De La Torre is coming home. The San Diego native is coming to San Diego FC on a 12-month loan from Celta de Vigo, which is a club in La Liga in Spain. And it's kind of a lease-to-buy type situation. They've got a purchase option to keep De La Torre after 1 year. 26-year-old, grew up in San Diego, played at Nomads, played at Surf before going overseas. He's played for the U.S. men's national team, including in the 2022 World Cup and the 2024 Copa America. Made 87 appearances for Fulham in the English Premier League. He's played in England, the Netherlands, and Spain. Now Luca De La Torre coming home. He will be, I don't think he's wearing number 10. I think he wears 14, but he will be the quote-unquote number 10. He will be the attacking midfielder.
It's always so cool when you get a homegrown product, and they're launching SDFC this year. I mean, that's a pretty cool connection.
It's huge. SDFC also announced they're having a major press conference tomorrow. Now, I don't know if that's to roll out De La Torre or not, but they are very strongly linked to a top Danish right winger named Anders Breyer. And it could be that that would be their second designated player. You get 3 designated player slots. The first is Chucky Lozano. The second would be Anders Breyer, who is a very offensive-minded attacking right winger out of the Netherlands. So stay tuned for that. We should have some more information on that with a major press conference tomorrow. We've reached out to SDFC to see if we can get somebody to come on from there or from after it happens. So we'll find out. Meanwhile, in the last 35 minutes, The Athletic has reported that Chelsea women and San Diego Wave FC have come to terms on a record $1.1 million transfer that will send world-class defender Naomi Girma overseas to play for Chelsea. Apparently, it's in the paperwork stage right now, so it hasn't been announced on the club level yet. But our friends at San Diego Punto Football reporting that announcement should come later this week, probably within the next couple of days.
Wow.
So this is the richest transfer in the history of women's soccer. The Wave get over $1 million. Chelsea gets Girma. And the Wave gets the backbone ripped out of their club. Just like that. Ripped out. Because
It's tough to see her go.
you're talking about the best defender in the world.
Yeah.
Gone. Gone. For money, okay, cool. Gone. She'll make a lot more money playing in England. Cool. Not great for San Diego fans. Meanwhile, Wave has been busy with a bunch of other moves. It's been kind of like flood the zone with a lot of moves. Oh, and by the way, Girma's leaving. Team announced the signing of goalkeeper Didi Haracic, who gets a one-year deal to come down from Angel City. She's been the starter at Angel City FC the last 3 years. Didi Haracic, I should say. But she should be backing up Kaylin Sheridan this year. Kaylin is often pulled away for international duty as Canada's number one goalkeeper. So San Diego Wave FC looking for a more experienced veteran as the backup. They're getting that in Didi Haracic. On the youth side, San Diego Wave FC announced over the weekend the signing of 18-year-old Colombian defender Cynthia Cabezas and 22-year-old Nigerian midfielder Favor Emmanuel. So they're getting younger. They got the girl Trinity Armstrong from North Carolina. They got the Nigerian striker, but they're losing Naomi Girma, and they traded Jaden Shaw. And so all those national team connections that the Wave were rife with Morgan and Girma, and done. All gone.
Yeah.
All gone. All gone. It went away so fast. On to our arena team updates. The San Diego Gulls losing streak is up to 3 games now after a 6-5 overtime loss at home to the Calgary Wranglers on Saturday night. Tough one for the Gulls. They scored 4 times in the third period, rallied to take a 1-goal lead, then conceded in the final minute to go to overtime, and then Calgary finds the winner in overtime. Counting OT losses, the Gulls are now 11-26 on the season. The Seals have not figured out how to win on the road yet. They dropped to 0-3 away with a 12-10 loss to the Las Vegas Desert Dogs on Saturday night. San Diego is 3-4 overall. They have a week off before they host Saskatchewan on February 1st. San Diego Mojo picked up a big win on the road over the weekend, going to Omaha to take down the defending champion Supernovas 3-1. Mojo are now 2-2 on the season. They're home on Thursday night at Viejas Arena to take on Indy Ignite. And the San Diego Sockers are running the opposite direction from the rest of San Diego sports. They're just winning and winning and winning. They have now won 8 in a row, including a 7-5 win Friday night at home against the Texas Outlaws and a 7-5 win yesterday in Ontario over the Empire Strikers. At 8-1, the Sockers are in second place in the MASL, just 3 points off the top of the table with a match in hand. They travel to Texas this weekend to play the Outlaws again. Wrapping up with the National Basketball Association and the NHL, the Boston Celtics just whomped Golden State yesterday, 125-85. Yikes on that one. A very tired Clippers team came home and lost to the Bulls 112-99 due to postponements from the wildfires a couple weeks ago. The Clippers were playing their 4th game in 5 days, and and they looked like it, losing to a bad Bulls team. Tonight, 5 games on the NBA hardcourts, including the LA Lakers playing host to the truly pathetic 6-35 Washington Wizards. So put in your underdog plays on the Lakers tonight because probably they'll be in good shape. Over to the National Hockey League now, where the Oilers' Connor McDavid has received 3 games of penalty for the match penalty he had for a high cross check in a recent game. That's going to put the MVP on ice. Or I guess off ice for a while would be more accurate. Yesterday, 9 games in the NHL, including Pittsburgh whomping the Kings 5-1 at Crypto.com Arena. St. Louis beat Vegas in a shootout 5-4. Tonight, 8 games. However, the Ducks are active. They will host the Florida Panthers tonight at 7. And that's it for your Tuesday 12 o'clock Sports Fix.
Very good.
I'm really bummed about Girma.
Yeah.
Just stinks. sure they've been reinvesting the money. They're changing the team. She's 24.
I mean, she's truly the best in the world.
It's not like she's at the end of a rope, She's 24.
That's a big loss. And I think, obviously someone that's been so important to the team off the field too.
So important. Just, Emma Hayes is the U.S. women's national team head coach. She says, Naomi Gurma is the best defender in the world, bar none. Mm-hmm. She said it. Best defender in the world. So, it's kind of like the old thing. Whenever when you lose the best player, I don't care how much money you get back. You screwed up.
I mean, Alex Morgan retired, Jaden Shaw's gone, and now Naomi Gurma just does feel a bit gut punchy.
Yeah. Maybe this is a matter of, I see Matt asking me in the chat, like, what's going on? You know what it feels to me? It feels like transition to me. There's been an ownership change at Wave. There's been a leadership change at Wave, at the GM level, at the head coach level, at the president's level. It's been a complete change. I have to guess that change in culture and all the issues that have taken place over the last year in those offices led some players to have wandering eyes, to say, maybe this ain't it for me. Naomi just a year before that had signed a deal through 2026. Mm-hmm. So, it wasn't like she has always wanted to go. Jaden Shaw reportedly wanted to be on the East Coast. So,
yeah.
You don't stand in front of that. It's
right.
a young woman. She wants to get to the East Coast. Okay.
You kind of honor those wishes, right?
Right. Gurma, this is heartbreaking. This is just heartbreaking because you're worse now. Doesn't matter who you sign. You're not going to sign the best defender in the world.
You can't sign anyone better than her because she's the best right now.
Right. So you're worse now. You're worse than you were before. So that's a real bummer. Obviously, it's a year of transition.
Yeah.
It's a house cleaning, as Tony said in the chat, or Chiva, or Abe. I don't know which
and
one's on that
maybe they've got a bigger goal in mind, right? Like a bigger identity. Like you said, kind of like a growing pains, kind of, hey, we got to get to this point, so we've got to, unfortunately, let her go.
Yeah. New team, young
call that name.
Boom, and then qualify. So, you
Yep.
know, stay tuned all day. Register for the biggest fan now, but you got to do it this week because the contest starts on Monday. So get on in. 97.3 The Fan, SD.com/biggest fan. Okay, 12:25. We've talked a lot of baseball in the first 2 hours of the show. We have not talked at all about the travesty on Saturday night that was the Detroit Lions defense / Jared Goff's prolific pick, pilfering, tossing. What a disaster it was for the number one team in the league facing the Commanders to just get whomped and serve up 45 points.
So I know the Lions are our team. I didn't hate that the Commanders were the ones to beat them. That's what I like. You know, you're happy for Jaden Daniels and you're happy for that. They're like the darling, the team that nobody really expected to be in this position. They played better. I mean, the Lions, they would cut in the broadcast to Dan Campbell, and you would just see like this look on his face, you know, of like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Why are we playing to the best of our ability? They did not look like the better team on Saturday, and it showed.
Injuries finally caught up to them.
I agree with that too.
I mean, they were
Yeah.
so banged up already.
Yeah.
I mean, they just kept losing guys. They kept trying to win. They kept winning despite losing very key, important players throughout the defense, throughout the offense.
Yeah.
I mean, eventually it was going to probably wear off unless you were just the best, ultimately the best team, and that's the case for football teams. I mean, winning a championship is a war of attrition. You lose guys every single week, especially with the amount of games that they play in the National Football League, and that's what it looked like. I mean, the Lions just looked banged up, and the Commanders jumped out and put the Lions behind the eight ball, and Jared Goff did not have a great game, and with all the picks that he threw, and Washington played really well, and the guy that was the most poised was Daniels. Daniels was great. He did not play like a rookie. He played a little bit better than that, and then you take a look at his body language on the sideline, just so stoic, calm, not worried about anything, going out there and playing ball. So it should be a good matchup when they take on the Eagles for the third time this season. I think they split earlier this year.
It'll be fine, and who knows what the weather will be like in Philadelphia, and I certainly would pick the Eagles to win that game, but maybe the Commanders have, the Cinderella spirit to get all the way to the Super Bowl and lose to the AFC champion. I don't know. I'm just
pretty heartbreaking, though. The
Yeah.
Lions were the team. They were a dream team. They were a very good team, and I think the injuries absolutely catch up to you, but you're home. You're in Detroit.
Yeah.
Was a good season for you to kind of make your mark, and that was a tough one.
And the pick six, to me, is where the game just completely changes. And honestly, as the most newly minted Lions fan, right, pretty much in the world over here, nonetheless, I remember saying to y'all either one or two games into the year that my concern with the Lions was Jared Goff. Because I see him as a system quarterback. I see him as a guy who's good, not great, who can beat up on lesser opponents, who when everything is clicking will complete, 19 of 21 passes or whatever. But when you get to the big game, he's not there.
Yeah.
He's just not there. And he wasn't there for the Rams in the Super Bowl. He played horribly. And he wasn't there for the Lions last year in the championship game. He was just all right. And he was terrible. He was terrible on Saturday night. He cost them the game. I know they gave up 45 points. I know.
It's a bad time to have a bad game.
Yeah.
The Ravens were another one where I was that obviously that 2-pointer that was missed, and that could have tied the score and tied it up for the Ravens. And same thing though, you look back and it's like Lamar had some opportunities where he didn't cash in. They made some mistakes before you got to that final play where you're like, although it sucks to not catch that pass and not get the 2 points, there were so many other things that happened in the game before that, and I felt that way with the Lions. It was like that was one of them, right? I mean, with Goff, it's like, you just can't let the other team, you can't give points away. You can't let the other, picks are going to happen, but there were so many opportunities where I think that like they let Washington in when they didn't need to.
Every team that lost this weekend made catastrophic mistakes and
Yeah.
made more catastrophic mistakes than the other team. That's why the cliche is, we got to not make as many mistakes as the other team. We got to play a cleaner game. I mean, there's
Great
a
point.
reason why that is such a cliche comment from a coach and a coach-ism. right? Is because it happens.
Make less mistakes than the other
right?
team.
I mean, Baltimore
Fewer
threw,
mistakes,
Lamar threw that pick on a miscommunication with Bateman. Mark Andrews had probably the worst 4 minutes of his life.
Yes.
I felt so bad for him.
So did I.
He fumbled earlier in earlier in that
He was
4
so
minutes.
upset.
And then they still had a chance to go down and win, and then he drops the 2-point conversion play, and you start looking over, and there was a lot of mistakes that the Ravens made. It's the same thing with the Rams.
Yeah.
The Rams battled all the way back, and we're down 2 scores with under like a couple of minutes to go, and we're still able to score to make it a 1-score game, and then made a stop, and then just kind of ran out of gas there at the end. But they turned the ball over multiple times in the snow and made mistakes where Philadelphia didn't.
Right.
I mean, weather was definitely a major part of that game.
Slickness, all of it. Yeah.
The Rams are built on running digs and quick game and stuff like that, and that hurts in the snow. I mean, a lot of the stuff that you can't run as many quick passes across the middle in the snow. Guys get slipped up, and it's hard to run routes and be able to do those sort of things. So, the snow definitely helped out the team that can run the ball, and that's why we say all the time when it comes to postseason football at any level, if you can run the football and you can stop the run, you're going to win, and that's exactly what Philadelphia did. And again, they didn't turn the ball over like the Rams did. I mean, you look at the Texans. I mean, their kicker had an awful night. Absolutely awful night.
Yeah.
In a game that was close. I mean, it was 13-12 in the fourth quarter. I mean, it was a tight game for a lot of time, and Kansas City was able to pull it off. They got some. I mean, some of the calls that Mahomes gets is utterly ridiculous in this day and age.
The memes after that game with the officials were hilarious.
I mean, even and it's what I like about even the broadcast. I mean, Joe Buck and Troy Aikman just say it how it is. I mean, they get paid a ton of money to do like one game a week, and Troy Aikman's like, they got to fix this, and they do. They do have to fix. You cannot allow a quarterback to run all the way around and then at the last second duck down and get rewarded for it. I mean, you can't have that in football. Otherwise, it's such an advantage. There's already enough advantages for offenses in football now, because that's what the league wants. The more scoring, the better it is, in their opinion. But to have Mahomes dance around and then pretend like he's running, and then instead of running out of bounds, cut back inside, and at the last second get down, and then not even get hit. The 2 Texans players hit each other, and then immediately go like, where's the flag? And then he gets the 15-yard penalty that ultimately led to the Chiefs to score. The 2 terrible calls that went against the Texans that helped Kansas City, and more importantly, Patrick Mahomes, both led to touchdowns for the Kansas City Chiefs. And it's getting ridiculous. Now, Kansas City's better than Houston, so it's not all about the officiating, but a lot of these need to get addressed because the overprotections for quarterbacks is getting to a point where it's like, I don't even know how you play defense against guys that can run, but it seems to be guys that can run that have gotten the check of approval to protect them, because Lamar gets tagged a lot and he doesn't get these calls, and I've seen Hurts not get those calls, and so the picking and choosing of what quarterbacks to protect are getting utterly ridiculous.
I remember I was listening in the car to a good portion of the Chiefs Texans, and by the way, Westwood won, right? And we cover all the games right here. So I was listening to 97.3 97.3 The Fan. And Ross Tucker was the analyst on the Texans-Chiefs game, who we used to have on a lot last year. I mean, he wasn't pulling punches either. He was just saying, this was a bad call that went against the Texans. This was a bad call. And it was like 6-1 bad calls that favored the Chiefs as opposed to favoring the Texans. Yeah. The Texans had a scoring drive. I'd have to look it up for the exact yardage, Braden, but it was like a 90-yard drive or something, and it was actually like a 155-yard drive.
Because of the penalties?
Because it was
all
just
the penalties.
penalty. Like, it was over and over. And it does, when you're in the car, when you're a casual, when you're just kind of chilling, it does kind of make you feel like, boy, the Chiefs have a whole extra team on their side out there wearing black and white, because every time the Texans make a 20-yard gain, it's like, nope.
Right back where you started,
You go back there and try that again, pal. And they did it, man. That was pretty impressive.
That's why, like, when you get, they always find a way to win. I just think of every playoff game where they have gotten bailed out on either a 4th down BS or like the protecting Mahomes, and it ultimately leads to touchdowns. And again, that's not the end of the day, because as we've mentioned before, football teams look at this as like we made a mistake here. It doesn't come down to one play, but
right.
Kansas City gets bailed out more than anybody else in the National Football League, and it's so apparent that national media all over the country right now are saying the exact same thing today on a Tuesday that we are right now.
I do think that their time might be coming with the Bills. I mean, I think it's going to be a good matchup.
Except for the games in Kansas City.
Yeah, well,
man.
okay.
I hope it's the case. I hope
but
it's the case.
You do wonder, like, when does their luck run out a little bit? Because the Chiefs always. I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs win because the Chiefs seem to do that in the postseason. But this year it does seem unlike other years, for them. But still, they've got every. I wouldn't be surprised if they end up pulling through. But I think that Buffalo can give them a run for their money. Like, I think Buffalo can compete on this one.
You don't hit Mahomes.
And as long as but you've got to think that the scrutiny on the officiating for this game is going to be in full effect, right? I mean, there's only 2 games this weekend, and you would think that they can't get away with all those calls. I mean, would you think that the NFL is gonna?
I watched the Bengals do it. I watched that.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen the same thing happen a lot, like throughout the entire year, and I've seen it for the last couple of playoffs where. They do get the benefit of the doubt more times than not, but they're the new Patriots now. I mean, they're just
right.
The Patriots used to get a lot of things that went their way too. Then they had really good team. It's just so they were the diamond darling of the NFL, and I mean they got Caitlin Clark in the box now with Taylor Swift. I mean they got all the marketing around the Chiefs. It's
they needed to go forward.
Yeah, exactly.
You see in baseball too when certain players get more of a benefit of the doubt, and this is pretty extreme.
There's players and then there's other players too.
They get a bigger box. They get a bigger They get more benefit of the doubt.
I mean I don't like the Dodgers at all, but. I mean, I remember watching Justin Turner just get absolutely hosed by every single home plate umpire. I mean, just everything. Like, he would never get a call. Meanwhile, it's like, Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts get all these calls. And it's like, Justin Turner, that ball's a foot outside.
Before I know we got to go to break soon, but are you seeing this? I just saw Media Melanie tweeted out a fire that's going on behind Fashion Valley, and
my buddy sent me a picture.
I Twitter searched Fashion Valley, and you can see some other videos, and it's pretty windy out there too, or it's been windy in San Diego. So I hope everyone's being careful and maybe avoid that area if you can. It looks like it's kind of behind Fashion Valley a little bit, where those homes are.
It's going to peek out the window here in just a second. But we'll take a time out. Please be careful. And consider the Mission Valley, Friars Road area, Fashion Valley area as areas to avoid right now in San Diego County. What you should not avoid is your phone. You should call us right now because it's time to play our first silly game of the week. We got 4 games, 4 shows. So just stay in order from last week. So it's Tuesday. That means it's Mind the Gap today. The game of multi-generational trivia where you and I go head-to-head. And if you're the first to answer a question aimed at a boomer, a millennial, a Gen Xer, and a Gen Z, then you can be qualified for our grand prize drawing at the end of the month to go see Scorpions on March 6th, plus a 2-night stay at Planet Hollywood and a $100 gas card. So let's open up the phone lines. Right now, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. You got this commercial break to call the show. Come on back. We'll find a contestant, and we'll play our first silly game of the week next on Annie and Elsten, San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. 12:44 on the Fan. It is silly games time. Scorpions return with their 60 years of the Scorpions Las Vegas residency show, live February 27th to March 11th at PH Live at Planet Hollywood Resort and Casino. Tickets on sale now at Ticketmaster.com. Somebody in the chat earlier said that the drummer is sick, and
Oh no.
yeah, I don't know. I have no Scorpions illness information
Hope he's
to
okay.
pass along. I hope he's fine. I hope the residency is unimpeded. And nonetheless, I'm going to read this liner and tell you that if you win today's silly game of Mind the Gap, you will be qualified for our end of the month grand prize drawing, trip to Las Vegas to see Scorpions on March 6th if they're there, plus a 2-night stay at Planet Hollywood and a $100 gas card. We're playing the game of multi-generational trivia known as Mind the Gap, and today's contestant who called in is Ollie in Spring Valley. Hi, Ollie. Welcome to the Annie and Elsten Show and Silly Games. How are you?
I'm doing good. Great to be here with you.
The pleasure is ours, Ollie. Before we play the game, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm from Spring Valley, big-time Padres fan, ride or die without Roki or not. I'm rolling with the Padres.
Love it, Ollie. Appreciate you. Here's what's going on. Today, you've called in on Mind the Gap Day, and here's how the game works. Braden Soprenet is our quiz master. He's got 4 different decks of trivia cards to read. They go like this, Ollie. There's boomers, there's Generation X, there's millennials, and there's Gen Z. You're going to start, and then we're going to alternate going back and forth, picking one of those categories. Braden will then read you a trivia question from that. Within each category, there's subheadings like TV and film or slang or current events, so on and so forth. If you get it right, you've cleared that category, and you're done with it. If you get it wrong, your opponent has a chance to steal if they have not cleared the category already. We go back and forth until one of us clears all 4, and if it's you, then you're qualified for the end of the month drawing. Does it all make sense?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, the only other thing you need to know is you do have a lifeline available. Annie's here today, so you can ask Annie one time for help if she thinks that she knows the answer. You can ask Braden one time for help as well. So you do have those 2 lifelines that you can use along the way. But let us begin. I wish you good luck. Where would you like to start? Would you like to go with boomers, Gen X, millennial, or Gen Z?
Let's go millennial.
Millennials it is.
All right.
Okay.
Braden pulls
What
the card.
category would you like? We have. You can pick from one of these categories for millennials. TV and film, pop culture, music, headlines, or slang.
Let's go film.
What was that?
You kind of faded on us there. What'd you say?
Let's go film.
Film.
TV and film.
In the movie Groundhog Day, which is coming up soon, what song was on the alarm radio every morning?
What dog?
What song was on the alarm radio every morning?
What song? Can I get Brendan to help me out on this?
Yes. The song was I Got You, Babe.
Good job,
That's
Braden.
correct. You're welcome.
Dang it, Braden. Why'd you have to know that?
That's right.
I was going to steal. I knew that.
Well, he's got one, Craig.
He does have one.
1-0.
You've lost your Braden lifeline.
That's right.
However. Okay, my turn. I'll go Gen X. I'll go home generation here. Slang.
Somebody mixed up the cards. Who did this game last? That wasn't me.
You?
Was it Frank? It wasn't me.
I thought it was you.
No.
Maybe someone was just in here playing, you know?
It's possible.
Outside of the show,
Adam,
right.
You guys are messing with my
Adam
cards.
and Scraby came into play, right.
Slang.
Blame it on Scraby.
Slang. Let's slang it up.
Name the movie. Have fun storming the castle.
Princess Bride.
The Princess Bride.
Have fun storming the castle. Okay, Ollie, you've got Boomer, Gen X, or Gen Z left to go.
Let's go Boomer.
Boomer.
Okay, Boomer.
You want to stick with the same category, Ollie?
No. Let's go pop culture.
Pop culture. Good call. Name the popular preschool children's game where kids would roll a die, collect a bug's body part, with the winner the first to complete the bug.
Hey, I get to use Annie too, right?
You can if you want.
Wait, can you say it again? What category are we in?
Pop culture.
Okay.
Boomer
Pop culture.
But boomer?
Yes.
Yeah,
Popular
the oldies.
preschool children's game where kids would roll a die, collect a bug's body part, with the winner the first to complete the bug.
Oh, the boomer's throwing me off, but is it cooties?
It is Cootie.
Oh.
Wow.
Ollie using excellent.
Ollie
Good
doing
job,
a great
Ollie.
job.
That was a boomer game, though?
That was.
It probably
apparently.
just started.
Interesting.
Cal and I was with you. I was going to say Jax.
I never played cooties, but
neither did
it's the only
I.
thing I could think of that was bugs.
It's a good answer,
Well,
though.
thanks to you two, Ollie's halfway home. I'm over here working by myself. let me try millennials.
It's the name of the game. Don't hate the player, hate the game.
That's it. That's right.
Slang again.
Sure.
Cuba Gooding Jr. made Tom Cruise yell this, making an instant catchphrase.
Show me the money.
Show me the money. Jerry
Great.
Maguire.
Great movie.
Was a great movie.
We're tied at 2, and Ollie's out of.
Yeah, Ollie's out of
Lifelines.
lifelines. It's all you
Yeah,
the
now
rest of the way,
yeah.
Ollie. But you got Gen X and Gen Z left to go. Where would you like to go?
Let's go Gen Z.
All right, Gen Z. What category would you like? TV and film, pop culture, music, headline, or slang?
Music.
Music. Bruno Mars and Anderson Anderson.Paak teamed up for to form this group, releasing the song "Leave the Door Open."
Ah, goodness. The Roll Babies.
No.
Give it to Craig because Craig can steal. Silk Sonic is the answer. Silk Sonic.
I drive all night to keep her warm, and the time is frozen.
What?
Oh!
No.
That's what it says.
I don't know if maybe you were answering the wrong question.
Bruno Mars and Anderson.Paak teamed up to form this group, releasing the
Silk
song
Sonic.
"Leave the Door
Oh,
Open."
no, you're right.
Yeah, Silk Sonic is the name of the group.
That's not what the card says. The card says, "I drive all night to keep her warm, and the time is frozen."
Do you think that's the name of the band? I drive all night to keep her warm
I mean,
and the time is frozen?
artists are weird, man.
That's
they
a
make
One
come up with
Direction
weird
song, too.
That's right.
The answer is Silk Sonic, and I got it right.
That's not what the card said.
The card
card
is
is-
printed
card is
wrong.
The card is wrong.
The card is printed wrong.
That's what the card
And
says.
I feel like the card is the authority.
Yeah, here. Annie can judge it. Oh, no.
Oh.
Craig can judge it. That's not what the card says. The card is a lie.
So who came into the studio and changed the cards?
That's right.
Who made
This is the
AI
second time this has
cards?
happened,
I know it
hasn't
has.
That we've had a false
You
back.
brought this game in, man. This
This is the
your
second
game.
time this has happened. I didn't print it.
This entire game's a lie. None of the answers
your
are correct.
The credibility is you brought it in with the credibility.
The card is gaslighting. Nate Taylor says in the chat. Should we do another different one? You got the point. Wait.
I get the point. I could show you the album in my phone. This is provable.
The card is a lie. The game is a lie.
I'd like to
Oh
speak
my
to whoever
God.
made the cards.
I would
Yeah.
like to as
Yeah.
well.
I
have
mean,
a
Craig
question.
did bring the box in.
I have a question or two to ask.
What kind
now.
of silly game is this?
I'm
You're putting
getting
silly
sillier
and
all
silly
the time.
game. All right, we got to continue.
And it's my turn, and I can win with Boomer. So
All
I'm
right,
gonna
here we
Boomer
go.
and try and win.
You
It's a
can't do
foul.
slang though. You've done it every time.
That's fine.
Pick
Do
a different
something
category.
else. Pop culture.
Pop culture. What was the difference between yellow pages and white pages?
Oh.
Yellow pages contain businesses. White pages were individuals' homes.
Commercial and personal numbers. Correct.
Is the card right?
I don't know. Card's a lie. We never know if the card is right. It lost all its credibility. Who knows if it's
That's
right or
right.
not?
Well, Ollie, this was a very weird game and indeed silly. But today, and this is a while, today I have prevailed in Mind the Gap. So best
Wait,
of luck
you
to you.
won?
Yeah, I won.
Even with all that? Oh my God.
4-2. Steals are huge.
We tried, Ollie.
Steals are huge in Mind the Gap.
That's
if you
okay.
get a
Yes.
steal in Mind the Gap, you've almost won 2 rounds as a result because you get the point and you get to go again.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Card is a lie.
the card was a lie.
The game's a lie. I don't believe anything anymore.
Sonic.
Yeah, how can we
Sing.
trust anything
How can we
the
trust
game
any of the
says?
cards
Right.
now? What are we doing? Who makes this game?
I don't know who makes the game.
Solid Roots.
Oh,
So
wow.
not so solid.
Not
No.
Milton Bradley.
Yeah. Milton Bradley's version's probably
Bradley
legit.
never get it wrong.
That's right.
Jeez Louise.
I don't trust this game anymore. That is the second time that has
Sorry.
happened.
That is the second
Was
time.
it also millennial?
I don't remember.
Or is it Gen Z? What was the one we just did?
I don't. It was. It was Gen Z.
No, it was Gen Z.
It was
Is
Gen
that the
Z.
second Gen Z?
It might be. Maybe the kids aren't into the fact checking these days.
That's right.
That's right.
They're like, just put that down. Nobody gets these ones right
Accuracy.
anyway. They're like, none of the Gen Zs play this game, and the older people won't know anyway.
Right,
so let's just put
exactly.
whatever
Look
on the back of the
TikTok,
cart.
Right. Oh, wait. TikTok may or may not be around.
It's
So-
back up, as told by my friend that's super into TikTok. I was like, it's only 30 days. She was like, 90. Whoa, my bad. Sorry. As you can tell, I don't use TikTok.
No.
No, me neither.
It's just not. I don't
need
get
that.
it. I don't need it in my life. I don't even need the other social medias in my
I
life.
just thought it was funny how there were so many like, oh, I'm so sad. And then like
so sad.
12 hours later, it was back on.
There's like 4 other
It's
social
right
media
here.
platforms that make the same stuff now. It's like, I mean, you can watch a YouTube short. Oh, that's not cool. Oh.
It's
What if
not-
we change the name to TikTok Shorts?
Well, then it's good.
UTalks.
There was a Ask Me
You
Anything
TikToks.
from someone who works at TikTok or
Oh,
on the
man.
engineering side, and they were like, "Would you let your kids use TikTok?" And he was like, "Not a chance in the world."
Yeah, no way.
No.
No way. And if James thinks he's going to have that, he will not.
Kids
You
on my
won't.
football team try to make me do TikToks with them. I go, absolutely
Why
not.
you dance, Braden? We want to
Nope.
see. No.
Hour number 4, right after this quick timeout on the Fan. Final hour of today's show. Welcome back, everybody. It's Annie and Elsten here with you. We post up every day, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. That's us. Annie Halbron, Craig Elsten here, Braden Soprennant over there. We roll till 2 o'clock. Gwen and Chris will check in from 2 till 6. At 6 o'clock, Matt Scraby invites you inside the borders of Scrabistan for the Scraby Chronicles, and you can enjoy that from 6 to 7 this evening. Make sure your immunizations are out of order. That's the only way that you're allowed inside Scrabistan. It's a little bit backwards, but so's Matt. So fun times all the way around. Hearing that things are getting worse in Fashion Valley with this fire that's taking place right now.
Yeah, I mean, I see the news stations are kind of all over it, and there was a lot of brush where you could tell from the videos that there was a ton of brush around where it started, but then there's a lot of, I think, construction, it looks like, on that same hill, or at least housing. So hopefully it's not reaching any of that. But I don't know if they're evacuating or what, but it's definitely caught. You can search on X Fashion Valley and you can see it's definitely caught.
Here's the latest from the San Diego Fire Department on X. Quote, they have a picture. Let's see if I can show I can show the picture.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Share screen.
So hopefully everyone's being safe over there.
There we go. Oh, hang on.
Now there we go.
They're this out. Yeah, they got the helicopter on that thing pretty quick. So it says from the quote here, as I remove the photo again. Fire crews are making quick work on Friars Road. Please avoid the area. Friars Road west of 163. Heed all warnings and orders from the police and fire officials. We do no longer see smoke from our spot that we had before. And based on that picture, it looks like they've done a pretty good job of making quick work of the fire, but until we get updates that it's gone, we will continue to update you as we hear from the fire department on social media.
And I see a few council members, too, saying avoid the area if possible.
Massive thanks to our first responders in such a tense such a tense time.
Such a tense time. And I mean, a lot of these first responders went to Los Angeles to fight in the fires there and to lend support. And I know Santa Ana's are coming through San Diego. And so hope everyone is safe and is careful. And for the first responders, yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, because they're going to have their hands full here in San Diego to make sure that doesn't happen here as well. What happened in Los Angeles.
So with that as a backdrop, we hit reset on some of the discussion topics from earlier in the show. We spent really the first half of the show, the first 2 hours, talking nothing but baseball. If you want to go back and check that out, you can find us chaptered off as a podcast in any of your podcast catchers. You could always hit rewind on the YouTube show. Also, the Odyssey app allows you to go back to things that happened earlier in the program. So check that out if you'd like. We're not going to go all the way through all of it once again. Nonetheless, we gave our opinions on Roki Sasaki signing in Los Angeles, and then Tanner Scott signing in Los Angeles, and then Kirby Yates signing in Los Angeles. And during the commercial break, Annie, my dad texted me and asked, has Pete Alonso signed in Los Angeles? And I said, no.
Not yet.
Is he supposed to?
Like, no. Then he's like, what's the matter with Freddie Freeman? And I'm like, nothing. Maybe they're just getting into a Pokemon situation, like collect all the free agents. Maybe they get a bonus if they sign 10 free agents. Maybe they get the 11th free. Maybe there's like a punch card that we didn't know about.
It does feel like they have like a 60-man roster by this point.
Yeah.
It just, because they've gotten so many players, right? You're like, when will it end? Isn't their roster full?
You would have thought. Someone, in fact, poor Ben, I heard him this morning when I was dropping off my son at school. He's like, the Dodgers are announcing that they're done with the Tanner Scott signing. And it was literally that second that the Kirby Yates signing came out. It was like, or not.
Or not.
Or not. So, this is the one thing we didn't get to, though. And I had teased it before, but we never got to it in the last 2 hours. We kind of did a little bit. I want to state it explicitly. I've said this before. You may or may not agree with me. That's totally cool. But as far as I'm concerned, the goal for the Padres is to win the World Championship. Duh. How do you win the World Championship? It's by getting to the playoffs.
You got to get in.
You got to get in.
Yeah.
Do you get something more for winning the division? You get to skip the best 2 out of 3. But that's it. That's it. That's all you get for winning the division. Mm-hmm. The Dodgers are going to win the division. They're going to win the division. Unless Chavez Ravine falls into a hole, they're going to win the division. And they're going to win the division next year. And they're going to win the division the year after that.
We don't know all of that.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are.
There's injuries or infighting or
Sure.
poor performances.
They've got a $400 million payroll.
The hard part with the
Almost.
Dodgers is that they have the money to erase their mistakes.
Correct.
So they don't have to like live or die by a mistake. They kind of just like, oh, that didn't work, and now let's bring in someone else.
Yeah,
It
example.
does make it a little difficult.
Who's, God, name escaping me. Right-handed utility man that they've had forever that hits lefties a little bit. They signed him to like a 6-year, $90 million extension. Chris Taylor, thank you. He has CT3. He hasn't hit for 2 years. You know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. For us, that's an albatross contract that we have to trade before we could possibly sign a backup catcher. For them, it's just like, cool, man, you're on the end of the bench. $15 million, who cares? Yeah. You know, any contract on their team,
There's $15 million to go away.
Yeah, any contract on their team, they can just absorb it, just suck it up, and it's gone. They're playing by different rules than all the other teams in Major League Baseball. That's just a fact. However, again, I'm coming back to this. What is the Padres' goal? Win the championship. How do you do it? Make the playoffs. Do you have to win the division to make the playoffs? No. There are 3 wild card spots. There's 1 division spot, but there's 3 wild card spots. Do teams win the championship from the wild card? Yeah, almost every year. Not every year, but many years. Many years the wild card wins. So, as such, and I remember saying this when Blake Snell signed in L.A. Said, okay, Blake Snell signed in L.A. Go sign everyone else. Go sign them all. Sign them all, L.A. Get all the players. Win 115 games. Win 120 games. Win 130 games. Set a baseball record. Doesn't lower the number of playoff spots. Doesn't mean, oh, well, the Dodgers won 140, so they all automatically eliminate all the wild card teams. Nope. None of that changes. We'll go 162-0. Still 3 wild card spots. Still 3 wild card spots. It's better for San Diego, for LA to get every player than it is for Arizona or San Francisco or Colorado or Chicago or Atlanta or Philadelphia or Milwaukee or St. Louis. When those teams improve, that's attacking those 3 playoff spots that we're going after. When the Dodgers improve, they're just consolidating a position they already held. National League West champion. No impact on us. Still a matter of get in and win. So I'm cool with one team taking all the players. I wish they had gotten Burns too. I really do.
Well, that's, I think, the other part of this is that the Diamondbacks have gotten better. The Giants have gotten better this offseason. And again, I said this earlier in the show, I think they're more getting to, well, maybe not the Diamondbacks. The Giants, I don't think, are yet where the Padres are, or even the Diamondbacks are. But they are getting closer, and they do have good players on their team, and they can contend for sure. The Diamondbacks, I think, are more of a threat now because their owner is also going all in. So it just makes the National League harder. It makes the National League West in particular harder. And we already know that this is really the elite part of it's the elite division in Major League Baseball now. I mean, it's the division that everyone's watching. So if on paper, if it goes to kind of plan as it is, I mean, this should be a very competitive division in the national. And then you have the Mets, who are also still trying to improve and to capitalize on what they did last year. You've got the Brewers, who are not ever out of it. They're always kind of hanging around. So you've definitely got competition. The Cubs, I don't think, happy with what happened last year. They're going to try to go out there and contend. So it definitely makes it harder. I think that we get a little bit. I know I get a little bit sometimes in San Diego, like you're waiting for the next thing, and sometimes like forgetting, wait a second, we have a pretty decent foundation right now.
Right.
They got to make some moves here on the margins. They've got to do what they can to better the club. And if they do make some trades, I think that while they might need to do that from a payroll standpoint, it also opens up more holes. So I think that they've got to be very, very smart, right, in how you handle these next few weeks, because there's several positions you need. You also need another bench guy. You need a DH, unless you're going with some kind of DH by committee utility thing. So you've got some moves to make here, and they've got to be pretty creative and smart with how they do it without giving up too much in terms of a good player like a Dylan Cease or a Luis Suarez, you might have to move them. But you got to try to really maximize that return if you do.
And when we say, hey, Padres, A.J. Preller did it in 2024, he could do it in 2025, that is true. But it also does bear noting that the way A.J. Preller made those very creative trades last year was by draining his farm system. It was by trading 12 of the top 15 prospects in the organization to other organizations. Those players didn't come back to us. We didn't reset the farm system in the off year. It's a depleted farm system. And yeah, they drafted some guys, they've signed some guys, but AJ doesn't have the stack of cards that he had last year that he could move in order to get other players from other rosters. This year, it's trading players off the big league roster if you're going to make a move, a la trading Soto last year. And that means it's an especially difficult thread the needle because you're losing something off your team while you're gaining something to your team, and you need to make it all work out in the balance.
Yeah, and I see there's some comments in the chat that they don't have the depth for the Padres. I would agree with that. They do have to work on some depth. They've got to find some ways to patch some holes, and especially with pitching, with the rotation, because you got to figure that some of those arms aren't going to be healthy all year, and you still needed a 4 and a 5 to back up Darvish, Cease, and King if you keep all three of them. They were, however, last year in that same position, and they made it work. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't always look great going into it. No one really thought Matt Waldron was going to play as significant of a part. Maybe you did, as a Craig, but as significant of a part as he did last year. But that's the thing, right? Like, sometimes you just have unlikely heroes that step up, and you don't know, is that going to be a Brito? Is that going to be a Vasquez? Is that going to be Adrian Morejon switching over to the rotation and having a good year? Like, those are the intangibles that you just don't know. But he definitely has a tougher job in those players, the 50-50 players, I call them, where you're betting on them to have a good year, but it could go either way, right? Like that was the case with Donovan Solano and who am I right now? Oh my God, I'm so sorry. The other bench guy.
Higashioka?
No.
Peralta?
Peralta, thank you. I'm so sorry, David Peralta. I just,
Never forget.
Tuesday, yeah.
Freight train.
It's a Tuesday, which only means it's an everyday for me. But no, exactly. Like, that's a 50-50 shot. I mean, like, it didn't work out with Matt Carpenter. It didn't work out with Nelson Cruz. So you have more risk. You're assuming more risk with some of these players. But you do have a pretty good core. I see another comment in the chat that the Dodgers are getting better. It's going to be harder to beat them in the postseason. I think you could have made that argument in 2022. I mean, the Dodgers were the better team in 2022, and they definitely got beat by the Padres. So it's in the postseason, anything goes, really.
That's the whole thing. And listen, if you think it's copium or if you think it's excuse making or whatever, I'm sorry, it's not. It's the nature of baseball. Baseball is the most random sport. Baseball is determined by 162 games. And then for playoffs, we go down to 3, 5, 7 samples, which eliminate the roster advantage. It's not to say that if the Dodgers have a better team than the Padres in a 5-game series, that they're not the favorite. They are. They're the favorite. But in a 5-game series, the margin that you're talking about is so much smaller than the margin in the regular season. I am comfortable saying in the regular season, LA's going to win the division, and you don't have to worry about that. Like, banish, it's not a negative. Banish it from your mind. Just focus on making the playoffs, because once you get to the playoffs, you get, for example, the 2023 Diamondbacks, winners of 84 games, going into Los Angeles and beating the LA Dodgers 3 games in a row. And just wiping them off the face of the earth in 3 games. That happened one baseball season back.
Look at the Phillies getting beat, I mean, the Phillies are a good team. You look at the Phillies and you're like, who wants to face the Phillies? And yet they get beat in the playoffs too. I mean, you just don't know what's going to happen in a 5-game stretch like that or a 7-game set leading into the World Series. It's tough, I think, to call that and to know exactly how that's going to go, because so much can happen throughout the course of a season that is just unexpected.
Let's take a timeout. It's 1:14. When we come back, some of the stuff we have not gotten to yet today. A very disappointing weekend in college basketball for our local teams, but some really interesting, it's hard to call it good news, but some very interesting news for golf fans. because we're going to have 2 PGA tournaments in our town in the course of a month, in less than a month.
Yeah.
We're going to have 2 PGA champions crowned at Torrey Pines. We'll get to that story and more as we continue toward 2 o'clock. It's Annie and Elsten, San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Craig Elsten here for Underdog. California sports fans, you can play. The Underdog app is available to download and play in your state. Over 5 million happy players, over $2 billion in winnings so far. Underdog makes it fun and easy to cash in on all of your favorite athletes' performances. This is daily fantasy sports. The way it works is very simple. You create an entry of a minimum of 2 players and all the way up to 8 different players. And they have to be from at least 2 different teams. So you can't just stack up on all Lions or all Golden State Warriors or whatever. That's how it becomes daily fantasy sports. And you're picking higher or lower. Is Steph Curry going to hit 2.5 3-pointers or more today? Is Draymond Green going to have 8 rebounds? These are the type of decisions you make. College football playoff yesterday. Is Travion Henderson going to run for 60 yards? Is Riley Leonard going to throw for 200? These are the types of choices you make. You stack them up. There's all sorts of different promotions all the time. All kinds of different plays that you can make inside the Underdog app. It's flexible, it's fun, and it's going to give you a chance to have action on the games you're watching. Underdog's the best place to play Pick'em. Download the app today. Sign up with promo code Craig. That's my name, CRAIG. And deposit now. You can get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly with promo code Craig. Must be 18 plus and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. 1:22 is the time on the Fan. Annie and Elsten here with you. Roll until 2, and Gwen and Chris will roll on in, and they will take our spots in these chairs, and they will move forward. Looking forward to the rest of the broadcast day. We'll be back with you tomorrow for 4 more hours from 10 till 2. As is usually the case with the first show of the week, you know, there's so many things that happened over the weekend. We really focused in on 1 or 2 of those things for most of the show. There's a bunch of stuff we haven't even talked about. So let's grab bag through a number of those things before we get to Ask Us Anything. Starting with, we haven't talked about the CFP championship last night. Congratulations, Ohio State.
Yes.
Who would not have been in a 14 playoff for dominating through 4 different squads in order to get to the college football championship and win it, beating Notre Dame yesterday. A game that, you know, to be honest, it really went the way I thought it was going to go for most of the game, for like 40 minutes, 2/3 of the game.
Just wasn't that close ever.
It wasn't.
I mean, I saw, God, I'm sorry, guys. I'm like, what's Marcus Freeman? Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Not Morgan Freeman.
Not Morgan Freeman. I was just saying in the break, like my brain, when does my brain ever work? But especially today. I'm just not remembering names right now. But so he was interviewed at halftime, and he was like, I don't think the moment is too big for us. We came prepared, but it did feel like the moment was a little too big for them.
They're not as, I thought there's a couple of things with Ohio State. First of all, I don't want to say this is the only time. It's definitely the first time in a long time where Ohio State, or should I say the champion, really earned the championship. Because what Ohio State had to do to win the national championship is very, very impressive of who they went through in order to do it. They beat the number 9 team in the country in Tennessee at home, a team that had a good defense this year. They shredded them. They go play Oregon, a rematch of a game that they lost earlier in the season. The number 1 team in the country was undefeated, and they shredded them. Yeah. Then they played a Texas team that was the runner-up in the SEC, who's got more money than God, that I didn't think was that spectacular, but made it a tight game. They had good lines and everything, and they blew through that team as well. And then you take on a Notre Dame team that has a really good defense, and you wipe the floor of them like they weren't even there, at least in the first half, and Notre Dame made it a game a little bit later on. But think about all those champions. This is the first time in a long time that you look at the national champion and you don't have if Ole Miss was in the playoff, they wouldn't have made it. Ohio State wouldn't have made it. Well, if so-and-so would have made the playoff, they wouldn't have beat that team. You don't have that this year. Mm-hmm. There's not like Alabama, Ole Miss, BYU, some of the teams that didn't make the tournament. They're not better than Ohio State. And so Ohio State, as the 8th seed went through, they showed that they were the best team. This is what the 12-team playoff does, is you have to get through a war of attrition and battle through and stay healthy and put together and beat good team after good team after good team to win a national championship, which is way better than the 4-team playoff and even better than when they used to just pick 2 teams to play in the final, which was dumb.
Stupid.
I mean, think about it. The national championship yesterday could have been Oregon and Georgia. We could be sitting here talking about how great Oregon is.
Right.
And you know what would be happening? First of all, Ohio State obviously would have won. Ryan Day would have been fired.
Yeah.
Right.
He wouldn't even have a job right now. Instead, he's making millions in incentives for winning the national championship and finally getting that monkey off his back of being able to win a national championship. I mean, this is what makes the playoff great. It's why people wanted a college football playoff. I mean, even before at least they picked 2 teams. Before that, they just had media members vote and just pick a champion. I mean, could you imagine how idiotic that? I mean, just think about how idiotic that used to be.
This seems like such a better system than what that ever was.
I think Ryan
It's not perfect, but
right. I think Ryan Day did a good job, but I think the unsung hero of the Ohio State Buckeyes this year was Chip Kelly.
Oh,
Yeah.
couldn't
I
agree
mean,
more.
Chip Kelly just shredded people. I mean, the plays they ran last night. I mean, Smith is by far the best player on the field as a freshman. And when you're a defense, you know where that guy is all the time. And it reminds me of like when Norv Turner. This is like when Norv Turner wouldn't get the credit of getting like with Antonio Gates. Everybody knows where Antonio Gates is on the field, yet when the Chargers were playing, he would be wide the freak open all the time. How did they lose him? Well, it's scheme. It's the same thing that happened with Ohio State. I mean, what they did with Smith to motion in the backfield, lose him in the backfield, find different spots. I mean, Chip Kelly was dialing it up every single game of this playoff where that guy is wide open, and you're sitting there going, how did Oregon lose him in coverage? How did Notre Dame lose him in coverage? How did Texas lose that guy in coverage? Yeah. It goes back to just what Chip Kelly has been doing with the offense. And think about it from this perspective of how great of a coach he is. He doesn't have to deal with any of the BS anymore of being a head coach and being the general manager and managing funds and kissing kids' ass. He could just coach football, and you know what he did? He went out there and won a national championship. It's very impressive.
And some consider that demotion for him, to go back and to be the offensive coordinator for Ohio State.
I mean, it
is, exactly. But I agree.
From a monetary standpoint and stuff.
Right.
But it's the same thing with, coaches would rather sometimes be, aside from pay,
absolutely,
would rather be the coordinator than the head coach.
I know some
because
managers,
it's more fun.
some MLB managers who are ready to, they were like, hey, did it was cool, but I'm happier to go back to just a position on the coaching staff and not be the manager.
It's the same thing with broadcasters, right? Like, most play-by-play broadcasters like doing radio over TV. Mm-hmm. It's way more fun. I get to call the game. I get to be the eyes of the listener, and you get to be more detailed. But TV pays way more, so you want to do TV over radio. The same things with coaching, right? I mean, I'd rather just call the plays and coach football. I don't want to deal with, begging boosters for money and asking alumni for money and trying to convince an 18-year-old to come play for me. And then while he's on my team, telling him he's the greatest thing ever. I don't want to deal with all the BS. There's certain people that don't mind doing that, or for the money that they get are willing to do said things. But for Chip Kelly, I mean, you got to tip your cap to what he was able to accomplish. Now, they got a loaded roster and everything, but still, they ran some pretty difficult things from a defensive standpoint to have to worry about, and they were flawless all playoff.
I thought Notre Dame has a lot to build on. I feel like they've got at least, foundation there. I don't know. Did you see with Nick Saban, what he said? I put it in the NIL. I couldn't find the clip, but I guess on the Pat McAfee show saying, because wasn't Ohio State's roster like $20 million or whatever?
Yeah,
something
they had
like
the
that.
most expensive roster.
Yeah, and so it kind of reminds me of MLB, because you had Nick Saban who's like, you've got a team with $3 million and you've got a team with $30 million, and how do you expect the two to compete against each other?
It's true.
It's
a little bit different with younger players.
Yeah.
I mean, but the thing is, it's where the linemen are, and the teams that had good linemen make it further. And Notre Dame had a great line, and Ohio State had a great line, and Ohio State's line was better than Notre Dame's line. I mean, even like the last kind of play near the end of the game, Notre Dame's down 8, needs a stop, 3rd and 9 or whatever like that. They go man coverage, try to bring the pressure, and Ohio State picks up the pressure, and they did that all game. I mean, if you got the best 5 linemen, I don't care who your skill guys are. You're gonna do very, very well in all levels of football if you got the best 5 linemen on the offensive and the best 3 or 4 linemen on the defensive line. That's why the SEC and the Big Ten have done so well, because they have them all, and nobody else does. I mean, if you look at if you took every team in the country and did a 7-on-7 tournament, University of San Diego would beat some SEC schools. They got skill guys that are just as good as the guys in the SEC. Are they going to beat all of them? Probably not, but they could beat some. And the same thing could be said about San Diego State. San Diego State would be able to beat a lot of these teams if you take the lines out. But that's the big separator when it comes to good and elite football teams, are the guys in the trenches, because I don't know if you guys notice walking around, they ain't a lot of 6'10", 350-pound people walking around out there. There's not a lot of them to go around.
No.
And these big schools pay for those players to be there, but you're going to see the schools that have money, they're going to be able to have the best teams, and they're not going to be the traditional schools you're used to. Right now it currently looks like that, but there's nothing stopping a rich SMU or a rich TCU or maybe a small private school that's got a lot of big boosters from competing. And that's why like Alabama is worried right now, because they've always just paid when other teams didn't, but they don't have like the major boosters that these other schools do, and a lot of the SEC schools don't. It's more of like, we have a lot of fans that will contribute money, but they don't have what Michigan has. They don't have the billionaire. They don't have the the billionaire whose wife went to Michigan, so let me
Right.
just write a $12 million check to the next quarterback. Alabama doesn't have that, right? So you're going to see maybe some of those schools start to come down a little bit, and you'll start to see some other schools that you don't realize have money be really good in football or be really good in basketball or some other sports. You're going to see these, schools that you didn't know had money, spending a lot of money, and then putting together some really good teams.
It's going to be critical to try to figure out ways to monopolize some of those contracts and some of that money.
Yeah,
How else do you compete?
And we didn't even get into all the other rules that came down last week. But
No.
I mean that's a huge elephant in the room for all of this in the future. That's probably not going to get settled to at least April.
Yeah.
Yeah. The one thing I wanted to kind of tack on to this, and it's funny because we got a Michigan fan in the chat doing handsprings right now. But, I'm not an Ohio State fan. I've never been. I have no reason to ever be an Ohio State fan. However, I do find the yearly obsession with Michigan to be over the top and a bit much. The scratching out of the M's on the freeway signs and the street signs. The literally attacking the family of the head coach.
Yeah,
and
please don't do that.
And creating a horrible negative situation where they had to have 24-hour protection for the family, the children of Ryan Day. Okay, now that's because it's the game, Ohio State, Michigan. And because John Cooper won 10 games 1 billion times in a row, but he couldn't beat Michigan, so they sent him out on his keister. And it's everything. Well, guess what, Michigan? Guess what? And I'm not down on you. You planted the flag. You started the fight. You won the game. Good on you. You got the bragging rights. But you didn't end Ohio State's season. You didn't derail them. Mm-hmm. You, in fact, were a speed bump on the train to championship town. And then they won the championship. They're holding the trophy.
Choo-choo.
Today, they have the trophy. So maybe next year, Ohio State fans, maybe next year, you can look at Michigan and go, cool team you got over there. We sure would love to beat you. But what we really want is to win the title. You don't matter that much to me anymore.
Serious question, though.
that's
Is
the problem.
Ryan Day's job threatened?
No,
No, right? Like,
not anymore.
Not
I mean, the
anymore.
only reason why they lost that game.
Won, right? When you win the national championship.
The only reason why they lost that game is because they themselves overhyped it. Ohio State overhyped that game. I've been a part of teams that have done the exact same thing where you make it more of a game than it needs to be. And with all the the changing of the M's and all that stuff, and Ryan Day feeling the pressure and the school like overreacting and trying to make it such a big deal, they did that to themselves. I can't even give Michigan credit for that. That is 100% internal. They made that game way too big because there's no way in hell that Ohio State team we just watched in the playoffs should have any. They shouldn't have had any chance of losing to Michigan at any point during the season. But they psyched themselves out, and they can't be doing that as much.
Yeah, but if they did and they still won the title, maybe it wasn't the game. Maybe the national championship was the game.
Right.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. And I know, I admit it's a little bit smug of me to say that, but honestly, you guys have been putting yourself through hell every week, every year with this thing. The whole that interview we played earlier in the year of Ryan Day talking about it was the biggest loss since his father committed suicide, was losing a football game. Like, dude. No, it wasn't. That was a game. Yeah, it's a big game. Yeah, it's a rivalry game. Yeah, it's important. But now in the new system, you can win anyway. So, personally, I get it where some folks might not think that that's great. Some folks might feel like, hey, Ohio State, if you lose to Michigan, you should be automatically disqualified from any further playoff because that's the game. But it's not how it works. It's not how it works. So now maybe the rivalry can just be a rivalry and not threatening people's families level of importance.
Yeah, I mean, the rivalry itself is what college football is based on, right? I mean, like the rivalries are huge. Everybody loves a rivalry. And so I think that you keep the good parts about that tradition. But yeah, ultimately, after all that talk about like, will Ryan Day be fired? Is that the end of his career after losing to Michigan again? All of that stuff. Ultimately, no. I mean, ultimately, there was a whole rest of the season and a playoff and a championship to win.
Yeah.
And things are a lot different now than they were then. I think there was just so much like speculation around that game being like the decide. It was as if it was the championship.
The Michigan people in the chat are speaking nonsense. Just utter nonsense. They're so full of themselves. They're so nonsense. I mean, imagine being the guy that's like, it's 6-6. We're spraying champagne because we beat the team that won the national championship.
Yeah.
Utter nonsense.
That's where we are.
That's kind of a loser mentality, Michigan. Be better than that. You should be.
We got to take a break. It's 1:37, and it's time for our final time out of the program. But when we come back, phone lines are open. Watch, I'm going to do this. Pow! Phone lines are open now. 833-288-0973. 833-288-0973. You've got 13 minutes to call the show, and if you do, we're going to just throw you on hold, and then we're going to put you on the air in our Ask Us Anything segment. All that we ask of you is to have a question ready to ask the program when you get on. Doesn't even have to be about sports. 833-288-0973. We come back with your phone calls after this quick timeout on The Fan. So the Hall of Fame will give their results in an hour and change at 3 o'clock. But Ryan Thibodeau, not Mr. Tibbs, has been on this beat for years, and he's got the numbers. So it's going to be 4 people. Looks like Ichiro may get 100%. Based on all of the, because everyone sends their
so it'd be
their ballots to
unanimous.
him. Yeah, so he could be the second player after Mariano
the only other one.
to be a unanimous. Billy Wagner, Cece's going to make it with like 90-something% of the vote.
Mm-hmm.
Billy Wagner's going to make it with 80-something% of the vote, and it looks like Carlos Beltran is going to make it. They had him tracking at like 82, 83%. Of course, 75 is the threshold you need to get in. Andrew Jones is tracking right under it at like 72%. So he's got a couple more years in the ballot.
Yeah.
So it looks like Andrew Jones will eventually be a Hall of Famer. Whether it's next year or a couple years to come. But based on the Ryan Thibodeau reporting, it's 4 players. It's Ichiro, it's Sabathia, it's Billy Wagner, and it's Carlos Beltran going in.
Yeah, I saw Sabathia tweeted, it feels like Christmas morning a little earlier. So, excitement, I'm sure, about what that moment is going to be like.
Yeah. So stay tuned. Gwen and Chris, I'm sure we'll have some coverage of all of that.
Or it feels like Christmas Eve. Sorry
Christmas
about that.
Eve, yeah,
that makes more sense.
I guess Christmas
CC.
morning is at 3 when the phone
Right,
rings.
yeah.
Bing.
This is when you're just anticipating Santa coming. Right.
Phone rings. Santa's there with presents.
Oh, how sweet that would be.
Hall of Fame.
How sweet that would be. Farmers gets going tomorrow at Torrey Pines.
Might be a very busy month.
Very
Torrey
busy.
Pines.
Because all the reports have it that the Genesis Invitational, which can't be played in L.A. due to the wildfires, is moving to Torrey February 13th to 16th. So we've got the Wednesday to Saturday tournament coming up this week because they want to stay out of the championship game NFL window. So tomorrow is round 1 of the Farmers, but then 2-3 weeks down the line, it'll be a Thursday to Sunday Genesis Invitational tournament. And who knows? Usually that's one of the only tournaments Tiger plays because he's the host. Mm-hmm. So we could see Tiger back at Torrey coming in February.
That's quite a big event calendar for Torrey.
Yeah.
I mean, to host 2 and have them so close to one another. But yeah, what are you going to do with the fires happening in Los Angeles? And always a draw. I wonder if that affects. The farmers if people think that they can come to the Genesis. I don't know.
A little. I think probably you've already made your call if you're going to the Farmers, right?
You booked your trip. You're planning on it, right?
Yeah, this is a new thing.
This is like a bonus.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
It's a bonus, and it probably won't have the level of crowd that they would have had in Los Angeles, if they were playing where they normally do. But nonetheless, what it really means is that Torrey does such a great job, and it's such a beautiful course that it made sense for them to relocate. It's unfortunate it's disaster-related, so we shouldn't throw any virtuosity onto any of this. This is only a disaster-related change. But the weird part of it is one of the most anticipated days is the Monday after Farmers, when golfers will be sleeping in their cars at 2 in the morning, 1 in the morning in the parking lot to get a chance to go out and play on the PGA, hardened course.
Yes.
Because you can't get on the course, right?
Well, I mean, I could. I'd have to spend extra. I don't have a city card.
I have a city card, and the guy over there knows us.
Braden.
Braden, thanks for coming out again. I love listening to the show.
It's there's certain
well, thank
advantages.
you, appreciate it.
Maybe he doesn't have to sleep in his car, but the next day. But now they're going to have to turn it over and get ready for
that's the whole thing. I mean, they won't be able to open it to the public for the 3 weeks in between.
Yeah.
So,
everyone's going to have to wait.
Yeah, the city's going to lose 3 weeks of Torrey Pines revenue, which is not a small thing.
But do you gain that revenue? Do they have to share the revenue?
I mean, I'm
with
sure
the
they
city?
get something from
they
the
definitely
Genesis.
will get something from the Genesis.
Yeah, they'll get something from the Genesis. So that'll work out a little bit. Nonetheless, interesting story. We'll keep an eye on it. Let's hit the bumper. Bump, bump, bump. 833-288-0973. You still have 2 minutes. If you want to call the show, you've got 2 minutes.
Craig can't play tour because he's an Arizona resident, right? Is that
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
That's it.
Big Arizona fan. Don't let him in there.
There's some golf courses in Arizona.
Yeah.
Mesa,
Some great
Arizona
ones.
now.
I don't know. You're the big Diamondbacks fan and everything.
I hate
so-
the Diamondbacks. I hate the
Lover of the
Diamondbacks.
Suns.
Can't stand the Diamondbacks.
Lover of
Devils.
the
I've
traffic
very-
grids there.
I have very little opinion on the Suns. They are a minor irritant to me.
And that's why he loves the hockey teams, the former Coyotes.
That's fell on you, UHC. You're the one who brought him up.
That's because I don't like them.
Oh, yeah.
So I hand out the fouls. I can say it myself.
Got it.
Hey, I'm the ref here, right?
That's true.
Argue with me. Bang. That's a T. Tee him up.
All right. Well, as Annie shoots the free throw, here's Juan in
That makes
Vista. Here's Juan in Vista. Hi, Juan. Ask us anything.
Hi guys, how's it going?
Hi, Juan.
I just wanted to ask, because I was watching the national championship last night.
Uh-huh.
I was wondering if Ohio State won, obviously last night. Who do you think is actually the favorite for next season? Do you think it's Ohio State, or do you think it's another team from a different conference?
Oh, good question.
Some frogs. No, we will be a lot better though. Got everybody back.
It's,
Top 25
No,
recruiting class.
this would be a question for Craig. Do you have any thoughts on this? Or
Ohio State's the number
to
one
Braden?
team
Okay.
next year. I mean, whether or not they finish there,
Yeah.
they're going to start there.
You're the reigning champs,
mean-
and you've got a good program, and you've got
Yeah.
a lot of money that you put into it.
It's tough because in college football, those national championship teams lose a lot of players to
Yeah.
the draft, right? They'll lose like a handful of guys to the next level. They'll lose guys in the portal still, and got to be able to replenish. But Ohio State's got the funding to do that. I think Vegas has them in Texas as the favorites, but it's always the same. It's the same teams that they always pick
Yeah.
early on in the year.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the way too early top 25, it's probably like just like the same way too early top 25 last year. They'll probably have USC on there for no
gonna
reason.
Say that.
Oh,
They just
USC.
automatically reinstate SC at like
Yeah.
10th. Like, hey, well, it's SC. They're probably
and
good.
Same teams all the time. I'm sure Miami will be really good. Carson Beck.
Amazing. Here's there is one. Thank you, Juan. Good call. We had
Will left.
We had Will.
Didn't want it bad enough.
Will hung up. All
Didn't
right,
want to
Will.
stay on hold, Will. All right, buddy.
That's fine, Will.
You're lost, dude.
You want to be like that?
The Bears got a new head coach.
Yeah, thanks
Yes,
for
they
listening to
did.
Sports
Oh.
Report.
They got our offensive coordinator from our beloved Lions.
I just wanted to touch on it again, Braden.
I thought you were going to say Kevin O'Connell got a contract extension.
He
Kevin
did.
O'Connell got a contract extension.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thanks for the breaking news 2 hours later,
Wasn't
Annie.
he being kind of targeted to maybe go to another team? Kevin O'Connell. Did
Him
those
and-
hopes kind of die
Him
after?
and Mike Tomlin apparently were rumored to be like teams were interested in trading for them.
Okay.
I don't know how much like.
How serious that was.
I mean,
yeah.
it's like whatever. Go ahead, trade for the head coach
Yeah, come on.
because they're doing so well. They're like, you know what? Yeah, maybe we can flip O'Connell and then go find another guy on the market that we don't know and have to redo everything. Like O'Connell's made Kirk Cousins and Sam Darnold look really good.
Yeah.
He has. O'Connell's an example of where hiring hot coordinator guy works. Mm-hmm. But it's such a blind bag reach to me when you hire hot coordinator guy. Because for every Kevin O'Connell, there's a Kevin Gilbride along the way that just, didn't have the ability to manage human beings, manage game situations. He needs the X's and O's, and he needs the play calling chart, and that's about the extent of his leadership. And so I don't know if the Lions guy is going to be the next brilliant head coach and the next Sean McVay.
He's very much an X's and O's guy, not necessarily a motivator guy that Dan Campbell is.
Yeah, so... Hey, proceed with caution when you reach in the blind bag to pull out hot coordinator to be your next head
It's
coach.
especially with like
Is that a
offensive
title? Is that
guys.
an official title?
Yeah, it's like hot priest, hot coordinator, but different context. But yeah, official title.
Especially offensive coordinator versions. There's like things that are very tricky and they work at the time and it seems brand new, and then all of a sudden there's out. All of a sudden it doesn't work anymore.
A couple of things we're working on for tomorrow's show. San Diego FC is staging what they are calling a major press conference.
Saw that.
Tomorrow. Is that Luca Della Torre and just welcoming Luca? Or is that the Danish winger that they're tied to, Andres Breyer? Either way, we'll find out, and we'll hopefully have someone either from San Diego FC or San Diego Punto Football on tomorrow to talk about that. I just received a behind-the-scenes report that Naomi Girma was at Wave offices today addressing the team and saying her goodbyes.
Sad.
So
classy of her.
Sure,
Very classy to do that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, but we'll probably have some coverage of that story as well as San Diego Wave FC lets the best player in the world go for money. Cool. Great. And who knows what happens in baseball and how many
maybe
players.
we'll have some moves to talk about.
Yeah, who couldn't the Dodgers sign next?
Maybe we'll have some Padres moves to talk about.
Don't hold your breath.
I won't be holding my breath. But that would be super cool if that was the case.
That'd be sweet.
Either way. Yeah, I'm good, Nate. Don't worry. Either way, the show is over now. Special thanks to Danny Halpern.
What a way to end it.
Right.
Can only go up from here.
Show's over. Gwen and Chris are next, and we'll be back tomorrow at 10. See ya.
Bye.